Chapter 970. Ning Cheng's first thought was to dig up all of these Dao fruit trees. But after digging up a few, he understood that it was unlikely. The Dao fruit trees here were different from the previous medicine garden. Every Dao fruit tree here was protected by restrictions. By the time he removed the restrictions and started digging again, half an incense stick's worth of time would have already passed. At this moment, the underworld crow ghost Rotan King's spiritual sense once again transmitted over, "Master, remove these restrictions. I can dig up the Dao fruit tree." Ning Cheng's heart moved. He might not have enough time, but the underworld crow ghost Rotan King could. Thinking of this, Ning Cheng immediately threw out a large number of array flags, which instantly weakened the restrictions around him. Just as the sand was about to run out, a cracking sound came from the restriction. The moment the restriction shattered, the underworld crow ghost Rotan King's roots, which had already stretched out, rolled up the tumbling soil and swept away all the Dao fruit trees. Ning Cheng looked back at the sand in the hourglass and found that after all the sand had dried up, there were still a few breaths of time left in the hourglass. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness deliberately selected a batch of low-level divine grasses and put them into the spiritual storage bag. At this time, when the sand had completely leaked out, Ning Cheng felt a powerful force coming towards him. Ning Cheng had just thought of this, when a ghostly aura rushed into Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness, not giving Ning Cheng any time to react. If he had not been attacked at the moment of the transmission, then with Ning Cheng's formidable sea of consciousness defense, this ghost-like aura would never have been able to invade his sea of consciousness. It could be said that the timing of this aura was perfect. A raging tearing force slammed into Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness. At this moment, Ning Cheng felt as if his soul had fallen into a huge blender, about to be devoured by a terrifying force. Immediately Ning Cheng felt that his control over his body was getting weaker and weaker, as if his body was about to leave him. Oh, such a powerful sea of consciousness, such a powerful spiritual soul. A surprised voice resounded in the depths of Ning Cheng's consciousness. No, this is the starry sky sea of consciousness. And it's all 8 types of spirit roots, and every single one of them is top-notch. Oh my God! This voice was no longer astonished, but ecstatic. He was like a man who was dying of thirst in the desert and suddenly saw a huge lake. Possession. Ning Cheng understood it in an instant. Because he had experienced possession before, he immediately knew that someone wanted to possess his body. How dare you steal my body? You're courting death. Even if I have to risk my life, I'll kill you. Everlasting Blue Thunder City, protect my Zifu Sea of Consciousness. Celestial River Flame, burn this bastard to death for this father. Ning Cheng's everlasting Blue Thunder Fort instantly condensed in his Sea of Consciousness, forming a city of lightning arcs. At the same time, the Celestial River Flame also turned violent at this moment. What he was least afraid of was possession. He did not expect that he would once again encounter possession in this place. At this time Ning Cheng finally understood the purpose of the existence of the fantasy garden. The fantasy garden must have been built by this fellow who wanted to take over his body. Maybe he did intend to contribute to the Grand Essence realm. However, it was more likely that he was looking for a true target for possession. This target was an alchemist who could open the 13th door of the fantasy garden, and he had coincidentally opened the 13th door. Wait, I don't want my sea of consciousness to be destroyed. If you don't resist, I'll let you reincarnate or refine a body for you. Just as Ning Cheng brought out the everlasting Blue Thunder City and the Celestial River Flame and prepared to launch a crazy counterattack, a voice rang out in Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness. Ning Cheng was so angry that he couldn't help but laugh out loud. This fellow actually thought that his sea of consciousness was his, and even spoke such shameless words. I've been waiting for the person to open the 13th door for 1,090,000 years. Originally, the fantasy garden only opened once every 10,000 years. Later, I changed it to 1,000 years, and then 100 years. But I still couldn't find the person I was waiting for. Originally, I wanted to give up after a while, but the heavens took pity on me and finally let me find you. Your starry sky sea of consciousness is perfect, and I don't want my attack to cause any problems. You are also the most powerful person I've ever seen with a spiritual soul, so I hope that you won't attack me. I'm willing. Before the possessing soul could finish speaking, Ning Cheng's celestial river flame blasted out, "Stop talking nonsense with this father. Do you still have any face? Did my sea of consciousness become yours? Whether my sea of consciousness is a starry sky or not, whether it's perfect or not, what does it have to do with you? Die for this father." Boom! A sudden flame rushed out and completely intertwined with Ning Cheng's celestial river flame. A terrifying heat spread out, causing Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness to tumble. Ning Cheng's eyes widened. This flame that blocked the celestial river flame in his sea of consciousness was definitely not any lower in grade than the celestial river flame. Otherwise, he would not have felt such a terrible burning sensation. One could say that if not for the celestial river flame and the everlasting Blue Thunder City's protection, his sea of consciousness might have already collapsed. No, he must not let this life essence continue to fight in his sea of consciousness. This was his territory, he had to end this quickly. You actually have a spirit-grade celestial river flame. Heavens, is that the everlasting Blue Thunder City? I can even feel a trace of origin aura. The voice of the spiritual soul in Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness grew more and more trembling. It was completely shocked by the things reflected in Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness and could no longer suppress the ecstasy in its heart. As long as he could possess Ning Cheng, all these things would belong to him. Stop, or I can destroy your spiritual consciousness and sea of consciousness in an instant. After the spiritual soul expressed its thoughts, an even more terrifying aura filled Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness, as if it wanted to devour Ning Cheng's entire sea of consciousness in the next moment. Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll. Ning Cheng spoke up in shock. He was too familiar with the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll. He had obtained this cultivation method and spent a lot of time perfecting this cultivation method. Hey, you also know about the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll? That's for the best. Since you know about the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll, you should also know that as long as I cast the Dark Consciousness Storm to trap your spiritual soul and drag you into the Spiritual Consciousness Storm space, you would not be able to attack me anymore and could only let me kill you. If I cast the Devouring Spirit Scroll again, your sea of consciousness would not be enough for me to devour. The only reason I didn't do it was because I didn't want to damage such a perfect sea of consciousness. The spiritual soul in Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness, on seeing that Ning Cheng even knew about the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll, spoke in a relaxed tone. The ignorant were fearless. He feared that Ning Cheng did not know about the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll. But now that Ning Cheng knew about it, he felt relieved. Ning Cheng sneered in his heart. After knowing that the other party also knew the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll, he understood why the other party didn't attack. Ning Cheng didn't know if the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll was created by this fellow or not. This cultivation method was similar to the transformation technique Grand Method. After devouring the spiritual consciousness, it would leave behind a sequela. After he devoured the opponent's spiritual consciousness, it caused a trace of foreign spiritual consciousness to appear in his sea of consciousness. In the end, with the help of the Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pill, the hidden danger was completely solved. This fellow's sea of consciousness collapsed. Maybe it was because he devoured too much foreign spiritual consciousness and couldn't get rid of it, which led to his death. It's not that you don't dare to use the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll. If I'm not wrong, your predecessor devoured too much foreign spiritual consciousness and fell, right? Ning Cheng spoke with disdain. You really know about it. The spiritual soul calmed down after Ning Cheng learned about it. Yes, that's why I don't want to devour your spiritual consciousness. But you should know that if I wanted to devour your spiritual consciousness, even if you have the everlasting blue thunder city and the celestial river, you wouldn't be able to escape. Moreover, even if I don't devour your spiritual consciousness, I can still destroy your spiritual soul with my spiritual consciousness storm. You're looking for an alchemy powerhouse to take over the body, presumably to solve the hidden dangers of the dark nether-devouring spirit scroll, right? Ning Cheng asked while preparing to attack. Ning Cheng wasn't afraid of possession, but this spiritual soul was the most powerful one he had ever encountered. An ordinary spiritual soul, after entering his sea of consciousness, wouldn't last for more than a quarter of an hour. But this spiritual soul in front of him could confront him without falling into a disadvantageous position. Ning Cheng had never seen such a person before. This spiritual soul didn't seem to want Ning Cheng to destroy his starry sky sea of consciousness. Instead, his tone slowed down a bit. Yes, you're smart. I'm looking for a genius pill sage to take over the body to solve the hidden dangers of the dark nether-devouring spirit scroll. You can give up your body and leave behind the inherited memories of alchemy. I promise I won't destroy you. Ning Cheng showed a smile. I'll ask you a question. I have an 8-element spiritual root. Generally speaking, I should be the weakest in cultivation. But you seem happy to know about it. Why? The spiritual soul heard Ning Cheng's question and spoke up in a calm voice. That's because they are ignorant. Only those with all-element spiritual roots can truly aspire to the top of the heavenly Tao. The best spiritual roots in the world are not single-element pure spiritual roots, but all-element spiritual roots. You not only have all-element spiritual roots, but also all-element pure spiritual roots. With your body, I can naturally aspire to the top of the heavenly Tao. To be honest, your sea of consciousness is the purest and most powerful I've ever seen. If it were an ordinary person, I would have taken his body a long time ago. As the spiritual soul spoke up to hear, the dark nether-devouring spirit scroll suddenly rolled out. The spiritual consciousness storm and spiritual consciousness chop blasted towards Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness without any scruples. Die for me. The spiritual soul snorted disdainfully while attacking. A mere Tao sculpting ant dared to bargain with him. With this body, the celestial river flame, the everlasting blue thunder city, and the origin aura, how could he leave it to the other party? Ning Cheng's disdainful voice arrived. I knew you weren't honest. Spiritual consciousness storm, roll, dark nether-devouring spirit, devour. You also cultivate the dark nether-devouring spirit scroll. Impossible, absolutely impossible. The spiritual soul in Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness exclaimed. Cultivating the dark nether-devouring spirit scroll and even daring to devour spiritual consciousness, how could the starry sky sea of consciousness be so pure? It felt that Ning Cheng's dark nether-devouring spirit scroll was much more powerful than its own. If its dark nether-devouring spirit scroll was a small stream, then Ning Cheng's dark nether-devouring spirit scroll was a surging river. Not only did it carry a terrifying devouring aura, but it also carried a crushing and crazy momentum. Chapter 971. You stop. Feeling Ning Cheng's terrifying and powerful attack, the spiritual soul that had invaded Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness was truly afraid. Ning Cheng acted as if he had not heard the other party's words, as his spiritual sense surged within his sea of consciousness, causing a terrifying killing intent to condense out. You want to take my body? Go to hell. Celestial river flame, continue to burn for this father. Time wheel, shovel this garbage into dregs for this father. First bridge of helplessness, raise it for me. The second village gazing bridge, prepare it for me. Sunset's twilight, condense spear intent for me. None to depend on, suppress his spirit sense for me. The 5-colored star splitter arrow. You don't have to shoot it. Just let it float in the air above the sea of consciousness. After sneaking into Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness, he had thought that he would be able to kill Ning Cheng's spiritual soul. However, at this moment, he could only stare blankly at such a terrifying killing intent, one after another. He wanted to cry. Before, Ning Cheng had used the dark nether spirit devourer to suppress his spiritual consciousness swallowing technique. Combined with the celestial river flames attack, he felt terrified. But now, this was not something that could be described as terrifying. If crying could resolve these attacks, he would have cried out long ago. At this moment, he could only mutter, "What kind of person am I trying to possess? Lunatic, lunatic." He did not know if Ning Cheng was a madman, or if he himself was a madman, to actually want to possess such a perverted cultivator. If he was given another chance, he would rather possess a Tao integration powerhouse than come to Ning City. If this divine soul could vomit blood, it would have vomited 100 liters of blood. What kind of possession was this? It was like barging into a perverted dragon's pool and tiger's den. How was he supposed to fight back? He hadn't even made a move, and the other party's methods had already scared him to death. Cultivating the dark nether devouring spirit scroll, he had crushed too many sea of consciousness and seen all kinds of powerful sea of consciousness. However, compared to the sea of consciousness of this alchemist, it was just a drizzle. In his own sea of consciousness, this pill refiner could freely use his mystique and construct his own laws. What kind of game was this? Couldn't they have a proper offensive and defensive confrontation? Just when Ning Cheng was about to easily kill the spiritual soul that had invaded his sea of consciousness, the spiritual consciousness storm that he had locked onto the other party suddenly opened up a gap. Not waiting for Ning Cheng to react, the spiritual soul in his sea of consciousness rushed out of this gap and escaped from his sea of consciousness. The next moment, Ning Cheng felt a powerful force sweeping towards him. A hoarse voice rang in his ears. "This saint is ruthless. I can't beat you, so I'll let you have your way." Ning Cheng's expression turned ugly. He understood where the problem lay. It was the dark nether devouring spirit scroll. At this moment, Ning Cheng felt sure that the dark nether devouring spirit scroll was created by this person who wanted to possess his spiritual soul. Because of this, the other party was able to open a gap in his spiritual sense storm and escape. If he didn't use the dark nether devouring spirit scroll, this divine soul definitely wouldn't be able to escape. From the looks of it, the dark nether devouring spirit scroll was still incomplete. If he wanted to use this cultivation technique, he would have to spend some time perfecting it. This space belonged to this spiritual soul. Since it had escaped from his sea of consciousness, he could teleport it away. Sure enough, after that powerful force, a teleportation force swept over. As the teleportation force disappeared, Ning Cheng appeared next to the crystal screen in the middle of the city master's mansion's guest hall. Ning Cheng secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Since he had teleported out, he didn't suffer any losses. For the sake of the divine grasses and the Tao fruit tree, he didn't care about the essence spirit that wanted to possess him. Perhaps he didn't care about it. This essence spirit that wanted to possess him would also vomit up 3 liters of blood. It would truly be a double loss. Seeing Ning Cheng teleported out, not only did Jian Sanshan, who had just come out, feel a little puzzled, but even Qing Hotian also felt a little puzzled. In Qing Hotian's view, since Ning Cheng teleported out now, then Ning Cheng shouldn't be the one to open the 13th door. If he could open the 13th door, then he wouldn't have teleported out so early. Jian Sanshan felt puzzled because he knew about Ning Cheng's alchemy methods and knew that he shouldn't have teleported out so early. The spiritual consciousness of all the people in the main hall fell on Ning Cheng's spiritual storage bag. Unfortunately, Ning Cheng's spiritual storage bag could not be swept through with their spiritual consciousness. Apparently, Ning Cheng had added an array formation to shield his spiritual consciousness. It looks like the person who refined the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill is truly powerful. Since he only came out at this time, then he should have entered the 2nd floor of the fantasy fruit garden, right? Man Huishan's voice came over slowly, as if afraid that others wouldn't know that Ning Cheng had entered the 2nd floor of the fantasy fruit garden. Ning Cheng glanced at Man Huishan coldly. "How many times I've entered is none of your business. Remember what you said just now." You'd better not have any bad intentions. Otherwise, hee. Man Huishan's expression changed slightly, but he didn't speak again. The people in the guest hall stared at Ning Cheng and Man Huishan in confusion. Some of them felt that there seemed to be some secret between the two. "Brother Ning, come here." Jian Sanchen's voice came over just in time. Ning Cheng had already noticed that Jian Sanchen's position was no longer in the same place as before. Instead, it was in a very prominent place in the middle of the guest hall. Sitting in the same row as Jian Sanshan was a Dao Transformation Holy Emperor with squinting eyes. This Dao Transformation Holy Emperor also had a spiritual storage bag next to him. Just like Jian Sanshan's spiritual storage bag, it didn't have any restrictions. Moreover, with a sweep of his spiritual consciousness, the divine grasses inside could be seen at a glance. The divine grasses in his spiritual storage bag were the same as Jian Sanshan's. They were all precious and not low-grade divine grasses. However, compared to those extinct god herbs that he had, the difference was not just a little bit. From the looks of it, this conspicuous seat was the seat for exchanging divine grasses. It should have been specially prepared for the alchemists who entered the fantasy fruit garden. Ning Cheng didn't go over immediately. Instead, only Jian Sanshan and this squint-eyed alchemist sat in the seat for exchanging divine grasses. In other words, only the two of them had come out of the fantasy fruit garden. He should be the third alchemist to enter the fantasy fruit garden and get teleported out. Ning Cheng's gaze swept over the crystal screen and found that 6 doors leading to the second floor of the fantasy fruit garden had opened. Moreover, 2 alchemists stood in front of the door leading to the 3rd floor. As long as an alchemist enters the fantasy fruit garden, they are not allowed to put restrictions on their spiritual storage bags. It seems that Pill Master Ning disdains this rule. A slightly gloomy voice spoke up with sarcasm. It was the 9 Revolutions Sacred Dao Pond again. Ning Cheng's gaze swept over the few women from the 9 Revolutions Sacred Dao Pond, and a trace of disgust flashed through his eyes. Jian Sanshan's voice transmission also reached Ning Cheng's ears in time. "Brother Ning, there is indeed such a rule. Pill Master Ning, on behalf of Heaven Essence Sacred City, I would like to congratulate Pill Master Ning on entering the 1st floor of the Fantasy Fruit Garden. Elder Shu from the 9 Revolutions Sacred Dao Pond is right. As long as an alchemist enters the Fantasy Fruit Garden, they are not allowed to put restrictions on their spiritual storage bags." Lu Jiesheng spoke with a loud voice and a hint of righteousness in his tone. Ning Cheng's gaze had already swept over to the crystal screen. He saw that he had refined the top 3 most difficult medicinal pills. From this, he knew that it was only a matter of time before he entered the 13th door of the Fantasy Fruit Garden. Now that Lu Jiesheng asked about it, Ning Cheng cupped his fists and said, "Because I didn't know much about the rules of the Fantasy Fruit Garden before, I had to put restrictions on my spiritual storage bag." Lu Jiesheng showed a slight smile. "It doesn't matter. Just remove the restrictions on your spiritual storage bag." With a smile on his face, Lu Jiesheng cursed Ning Cheng in his heart for being too cunning. Knowing that he and Jian Sanshan could enter the 1st floor of the Fantasy Fruit Garden, Lu Jiesheng took out 6 Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation pills. Although he might not necessarily suffer a loss, he definitely fell into Ning Cheng's trap. Since Ning Cheng could take out 6 Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation pills, it meant that he had more on him. In other words, although these 6 Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation pills were important to him, they weren't that important to Ning Cheng. But because Cheng Ho Tian stood behind Ning Cheng, he didn't dare to say anything about taking away Ning Cheng's spiritual storage bag. If Ning Cheng didn't have Cheng Ho Tian behind him, he wouldn't have hesitated to take away Ning Cheng's spiritual storage bag. Ning Cheng showed a faint smile. "I didn't understand the rules of the Fantasy Fruit Garden before. But now that I've read the rules of the Fantasy Fruit Garden, I feel that the restrictions on my spiritual storage bag aren't wrong." The rules of the Fantasy Fruit Garden were clearly engraved in a corner of the crystal screen. Only a few people looked at these rules. But after listening to Ning Cheng's words, almost everyone's eyes fell on the corner of the crystal screen. The third rule stated that in order to fairly distribute the divine grasses in the fantasy fruit garden, pill masters who entered the fantasy fruit garden had to use a spiritual storage bag. Moreover, the spiritual storage bag must not have any spiritual consciousness shielding restrictions. City Master Lo, may I ask what is the fair distribution of the divine grasses in the fantasy fruit garden? Ning Cheng looked at Lu Jiesheng and asked with a smile. Lu Jiesheng was a wily old fox. How could he not understand Ning Cheng's meaning? He felt some regret in his heart. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have agreed to Ning Cheng's request to leave behind all the divine grasses. As long as he asked for 10% of the divine grasses, Ning Cheng would have no excuse. Now that all the divine grasses Ning Cheng obtained belonged to Ning Cheng, there was naturally no need for a fair distribution. If there was no need for a fair distribution, why would he need to let others know how many divine grasses he obtained? Ning Cheng knew that Lu Jiesheng wouldn't answer, but he also didn't expect the other party to answer. He continued, when I entered the fantasy fruit garden, I negotiated with City Master Lu. I paid 6 top-grade spirit pills, but City Master Lu didn't want the divine grasses I obtained in the fantasy fruit garden. I believe that all the fellow Taoists present here heard it clearly. Now that these divine grasses are all mine, I naturally have the right to place restrictions on them. River Luo of Sacred Sex Tong Mingzi sneered, the divine grasses in the fantasy fruit garden have to be publicly traded. Even if it's yours, it has to be publicly traded. Otherwise, if no one is willing to take out divine grasses or Tao fruits to trade, what's the point of the fantasy fruit garden's existence? This person is River Luo of Sacred Sex Elder Tong Mingzi, Guokaiga's master. Jian Sanchen's voice reached Ning Cheng's ears. Ning Cheng's gaze fell on Tong Mingzi and spoke up in a cold voice, according to you, as long as you come here to participate in the fantasy fruit garden, your things have to be publicly traded. Tong Mingzi didn't fall for Ning Cheng's trick. When did I say that my things have to be publicly traded? I just said that the divine grasses belong to the category of things to be traded, so they have to be publicly traded. Chapter 972. Ning Cheng sneered, it's my own divine grass. What can you do if I don't trade it? Why don't you find a rule in the illusion fruit garden that states that one must trade divine herbs for the illusion fruit garden? Tong Mingzi had already witnessed Ning Cheng's boldness. He even dared to talk back to Man Huishan and Lu Jiesheng, not to mention Tong Mingzi. If Ning Cheng were a coward, he wouldn't have killed Man Juren, nor would he have dared to kill Guokaiga. The fantasy garden truly didn't have any rules regarding forced transactions. Although Tong Mingzi felt angry, Ning Cheng followed up with a question, Tao priest Tong Mingzi, let me ask you, did you come here to trade divine grasses or Tao fruits? Facing Ning Cheng's rhetorical question, Tong Mingzi spoke up in a blunt manner, I naturally came here to trade divine grasses or Tao fruits. If every pill master who enters the fantasy fruit garden is the same as you, then don't come to the fantasy fruit garden when it opens. Only those pill masters qualified to enter would be able to do so. Ning Cheng spoke up calmly, Tao priest Tong Mingzi, you just said that the things you want to trade should be made public. I wonder what you want to trade for divine grasses. I guess it should be the treasures in your ring, right? In that case, why don't you make your storage ring public first? Anyway, it's also a transaction item. I promise that after you make it public, I will also make my divine grasses public. You. Sophistry. Tong Mingzi scolded angrily. Telling him to make his storage ring public was no different from courting death. Ning Cheng chuckled and stared at Tong Mingzi with disdain. There's a saying that goes, don't do to others what you don't want done to yourself. You don't even want to make your own things public, yet you're here asking me to make mine public. What do you mean by this? Oh, by the way, you're not trying to find fault with me because I killed your unworthy disciple Guokaiga, are you? The Grand Essence Great Meat has a clear rule that no one is allowed to seek revenge because of the Great Meat. Do you want to violate the rules of the entire Grand Essence domain? In any case, Tong Mingzi and Ning Cheng wouldn't become friends. Ning Cheng also didn't care about his thoughts and spoke without mercy. Ning Cheng's words were reasonable, but most of the people in the guest hall stood on Tong Mingzi's side. Everyone came here to buy divine grasses and Dao fruits. Naturally, they didn't want Ning Cheng to monopolize the divine grasses. Ning Cheng was not an idiot, he was very clear that he could not provoke public anger in this place. Just when everyone thought that Ning Cheng would put away the spiritual storage bag, Ning Cheng suddenly put the spiritual storage bag on the table next to Sword 3 Mountain. He then cupped his fists and walked around in a circle. Fellow Dao friends, I know that everyone came here today to buy Dao fruits and divine grasses. Besides earning some spirit crystals to spend, I also want to make some contributions to my Grand Essence realm. Fortunately, I managed to enter the Fantasy Fruit Garden and obtained some pretty good natural treasures. I've always taken the rise of the Grand Essence realm as my responsibility, so I naturally won't swallow these divine grasses for myself. I will leave these divine grasses here. After the other pill refiners come out of the Fantasy Garden, we will sell them together. I will sell these divine grasses at a cheaper price than others. I have a piece of good news for everyone. This time, I obtained some very precious divine grasses. I believe that my friends here will not be disappointed. The reason why I'm not opening the restriction right now is to maintain a sense of mystery and to add some entertainment to the fellow Taoists who come here. The angry Tong Mingzi suddenly felt dumbfounded. He naturally knew that even if he was in the wrong, no one would support Ning Cheng. He thought that Ning Cheng was hiding because he didn't want to take out these divine grasses. He didn't expect that Ning Cheng would willingly take out these divine grasses after teaching him a bit. This made his little advantage disappear without a trace. As long as one wasn't a fool, no one would stand up for Tong Mingzi at this time. Cheng Hotian felt relieved. He feared that Ning Cheng was too young and didn't have a sense of propriety. If Ning Cheng wasn't willing to take out these divine grasses, it definitely wouldn't be a good thing for Ning Cheng. Sure enough, as soon as Ning Cheng's voice fell, it attracted a burst of praises. No matter how lofty Ning Cheng's words were, no one would feel disgusted at this time. Everyone could say lofty words. Previously, when someone opened the 13th door, people had already said lofty words several times. For the people present, as long as Ning Cheng could take out something, it didn't matter. Even if Ning Cheng said that he wanted to become the savior of the Grand Essence realm, no one would say anything. At the entrance to the 3rd floor of the Fantasy Garden, as soon as Jing Han landed, he saw Do Jiangshi preparing to refine pills. Do Jiangshi didn't pay any attention to Jing Han at all. He just took out a pile of divine grasses and prepared to refine pills. It looks like you got a lot of good things. Your Immortal Corpse sect really hit it well. You got first place in the first 2 floors. But from the 3rd floor of the Fantasy Garden onwards, you'll have to follow me honestly. Jing Han's gaze swept over the divine grasses Do Jiangshi took out, and his expression and tone turned a bit cold. Do Jiangshi's zombie-like face didn't show any expression. Only after Jing Han finished speaking did he let out a sentence that sounded like it came from hell. No wonder you can take out the fake Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills pill recipe. Your great god pill sect's mouth is much better than my Immortal Corpse sect's. After that, he ignored Jing Han and directly brought out a flame and started refining pills. Jing Han's expression turned even gloomier. Ning Cheng had used a few waste pills to exchange for 2 5-elements heavenly fruits. It was a humiliation. Even if Do Jiangshi didn't use this to ridicule him, he wouldn't let Ning Cheng off after going out. At this time, another pill master who entered the Fantasy Garden came out. The cultivators in the guest hall were still talking about who had entered the 13th door. Because Ning Cheng had entered the Fantasy Garden, many people took the initiative to greet Ning Cheng and try to befriend him. Since Pill God Ning could enter the Fantasy Garden, it means that he has an outstanding understanding of the Tao of alchemy. In the upcoming alchemy conference, he would definitely stand out. He would most likely represent my Grand Essence realm in the alchemy conference and win a precious spot to enter the Grand Change realm. To Ning Cheng's surprise, Lu Jiesheng acted as if he hadn't asked Ning Cheng anything and took the initiative to show goodwill to Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng only knew that the alchemy conference had something to do with entering the Grand Change realm. As for the specific method to enter the Grand Change realm, he wasn't very clear about it. Many thanks for City Master Li's auspicious words. Ning Cheng casually cupped his fists. People like Lu Jiesheng were too shrewd. If not necessary, Ning Cheng didn't want to have a conflict with such a person. Previously, this person had almost killed him to please Man Huishan. Ning Cheng understood Lu Jiesheng's thoughts very well. Lu Jiesheng might have wanted to kill him to please Man Huishan, but this fellow most likely wanted to throw him out because of the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill. If he didn't have the ability to protect himself, Lu Jiesheng would have locked him up and slowly interrogated him about the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill after everything in the fantasy garden ended. But since he wanted to kill him, why should he be polite to such a person? What surprised Ning Cheng was that so far, 5 pill masters had entered the 3rd floor of the fantasy garden. One had to know that only 6 people could enter the 3rd floor of the fantasy garden. Although one only needed Dao transformation spirit pills to open the 3rd floor of the fantasy garden, some Dao fruits already appeared on the 3rd floor. Among the many Dao fruits that appeared in the fantasy garden, most of them appeared on the 3rd floor of the fantasy garden. Another hour passed, and as another pill master was sent out, the door to the 4th floor of the fantasy garden opened. The pill masters who entered the fantasy garden this time are really powerful. All 3 doors on the 4th floor have opened. Seeing all 3 doors on the 4th floor open, someone exclaimed. If I didn't guess wrong, Pill Sage Jing Han and Pill Sage Leshem should have entered the 4th floor. What's puzzling is, who is the 3rd person? With all 3 doors to the 4th floor of the fantasy garden opened, the people in the guest hall became even more enthusiastic. This time, not only did the 13th door open, but 3 people also entered the 4th floor of the fantasy garden at the same time. The 4th floor meant higher grade Dao fruits, which meant that their trip was not in vain. At this time, the voices of discussion became even quieter. Everyone was looking forward to seeing if someone could open the 5th floor of the fantasy garden. Shortly after the 3 pill masters entered the 4th floor of the fantasy garden, the 3 pill masters were sent out. Seeing the 3 pill masters sent out, everyone's eyes fell in the direction of the Immortal Corpse sect. It was obvious that among the 3 people left in the fantasy garden, apart from Jing Han and Leshem, there was also the Dao sculpting pill sage Do Jiangshi from the Immortal Corpse sect. Ning Cheng's gaze didn't look at the Immortal Corpse sect. Instead, his gaze fell on the row of pill masters who were ready to sell divine grasses or Dao fruits. He was guessing if anyone had taken over their bodies. Since that fellow failed to take over his body, maybe he chose one of the other pill masters. The reason why he made such a guess was that after he entered the core of the fantasy garden, he had collected the most precious divine grasses and Dao fruits in one fell swoop. Even if that spirit soul stayed in the depths of the fantasy garden, without the divine grasses and Dao fruits, it wouldn't have been able to stay. Moreover, that spirit soul definitely wouldn't want to suffer such a big loss. How could it be willing? No matter who it was, taking away all the divine grasses and Dao fruits it had collected for so many years wouldn't be willing. Ning Cheng remained cautious. That spirit soul was very powerful. The reason why he suppressed it was because that fellow had more guts than him and dared to break into his sea of consciousness to take over his body. No matter how powerful a spirit soul was, if it dared to enter his sea of consciousness to take over his body, it would only lead to death. However, this spirit soul didn't die after failing to take over his body. Instead, it escaped from his sea of consciousness. The few pill masters who came out behaved normally. At least, Ning Cheng didn't see any clues. No wonder Dao friend Chun spoke up for the pill master who entered the 13th Dao gate. It turns out that that person might also be a pill master from your Immortal Corpse sect. The Immortal Corpse sect really hides itself deeply. It even has a Tao transformation pill sage, Fei Feng mocked loudly. Previously, he couldn't understand why the Immortal Corpse sect spoke up for the Great God Pill sect. The Holy Emperor from the Great God Pill sect had an ugly expression on his face. He was sure that the person who opened the 13th Tao gate of the Fantasy Garden was Jing Han from the Great God Pill sect. Now that Do Jiangshi from the Immortal Corpse sect suddenly appeared, he became a little uncertain about what Chun Fei had said before. While everyone was guessing, two figures landed beside the crystal screen in the hall one after the other. Everyone knew that these two pill masters had failed to pass the 5th level of the Fantasy Garden and were teleported out. Chapter 973. The people in the guest hall quickly saw that the two people who had been teleported out were Jing Han and Do Jiangshi. Jing Han was in front while Do Jiangshi was behind. Everyone looked at the two of them, and for a moment, the hall was silent. There was a 90% chance that one of them had opened the 13th door. The question was, who had opened the 13th door? The order of greeting was very important. Once the alchemy sage who had not entered the 13th door was greeted, it would make the other alchemy sage unhappy and it would be difficult to obtain the extinct divine spirit herbs or Tao fruits. Congratulations on your great harvest in the Fantasy Garden. Two alchemy sages, please take a seat. Lu Jiesheng stood up and broke the silence. Lu Jiesheng was the city lord, so Jing Han and Do Jiangshi did not dare to neglect him. They politely greeted him before sitting down. Alchemy Sage Jing is a Tao transformation alchemy sage, so you must be the first to enter the Fantasy Garden. The Immortal Corpse sect congratulates Alchemy Sage Jing Han here. The Immortal Corpse sect's Chun Fei stood up and said with a mischievous smile. Everyone knew what Chun Fei meant. He believed that the Immortal Corpse sect's Do Jiangshi had entered the Fantasy Garden first, which was why he had the confidence to stand up and ridicule Jing Han. Jing Han's face turned cold and he said arrogantly, your Immortal Corpse sect was the first to enter the 1st and 2nd level of the Fantasy Garden, but I, Jing Han, entered the 3rd and 4th level first. He had a reason to be arrogant. Even an idiot knew that the earlier one entered the Fantasy Garden, the more precious divine spirit herbs and Tao fruits one would obtain. Similarly, the divine spirit herbs in the later levels of the Fantasy Garden were far more precious than those in the earlier levels. Do Jiangshi had entered the 1st and 2nd level of the Fantasy Garden first, but Jing Han had entered the 3rd and 4th level first. This was not the first time that Jing Han had entered the Fantasy Garden. He naturally knew why everyone's greeting had been a little slow when he and Do Jiangshi had come out. This was because the people in the hall wanted to know who had obtained the more precious Tao fruit between him and Do Jiangshi. What Jing Han had not expected was that after he said this, the people in the guest hall became enthusiastic. Unlike what he had imagined, almost everyone came to greet Do Jiangshi with cupped fists. That kind of politeness was just short of not calling him father. Do Jiangshi's zombie face was expressionless, but in the face of so many enthusiastic greetings, he had no choice but to stand up and squeeze out a smile on his zombie face. Jing Han's complexion turned even more unsightly. After these people greeted Do Jiangshi, they greeted him. It was obvious that they placed him behind Do Jiangshi. Lu Jiesheng laughed. He even took the initiative to walk down and cupped his fists towards Do Jiangshi. Congratulations to Pill Sage Do for being the first to enter the Illusion Orchard and for opening the 13th door. Jing Han was startled when he heard this. He immediately understood why everyone was so enthusiastic towards Do Jiangshi. So this zombie face opened the 13th door of the Magic Garden. As a Tao Transformation Alchemy Saint, he had naturally heard of the 13th Tao Gate in the Illusion Orchard. Now that Do Jiangshi had opened the 13th door, the rumor of the 13th door had become a reality. That's not right. When he opened the door to the 1st level of the Fantasy Garden, there were clearly 11 doors left. In other words, Do Jiangshi had entered before him, but it was only one of the 12 doors. When did this zombie face open the 13th door? Dou Jiangshi's stiff face stiffened even more when he heard Lu Jiesheng's words. He quickly reacted and said doubtfully, "It's true that I was the first to enter the illusion orchard, but didn't I also open one of the 12 doors?" Immediately, he and Jing Han asked in shock, "Someone opened the 13th door of the illusion orchard?" The guest hall fell silent. The 13th door had not been opened by Dou Jiangshi or Jing Han, so the only possibility was that Leshem had opened it. Just as everyone thought of Leshem was teleported out and landed in the middle of the hall. Leshem did not feel special in the face of this warm greeting. Since he could enter the 4th level of the illusion orchard, people would naturally be enthusiastic towards him. What kind of place was the illusion orchard? It was a place rich in Dao fruits. Even though he was the 3rd person to enter the 4th level of the illusion orchard, he had obtained nearly 100 Dao fruits. He naturally did not need that many Dao fruits, so he had basically traded them away. However, Leshem quickly understood why everyone was so enthusiastic towards him. He asked in amazement, "Did someone enter the 13th door of the illusion orchard?" Leshem's words indicated that the person who opened the 13th door of the illusion orchard was not him, Jing Han, Dou Jiangshi or Leshem. So who opened the 13th door of the illusion orchard? Everyone's eyes fell on the 8 people who came out first. Could the crystal screen have made a mistake? A sacred emperor asked in doubt. His words were immediately refuted by someone. The illusion orchard's crystal screen can't make a mistake. A total of 11 alchemy masters entered the illusion orchard this time. In fact, 2 of the 12 doors on the 1st level of the illusion orchard have not opened yet. This means that one person did not enter from the 12 doors on the 1st level. Many people's eyes swept over Ning Cheng. Although Ning Cheng was just a Dao sculpting alchemy saint, he was the most suspicious person. If he knew that Ning Cheng could open the 13th door of the fantasy orchard, no matter how many benefits Ning Cheng gave him, he would never let Ning Cheng take all the Dao fruits. Lu Jiesheng looked at the other holy emperors in the hall. He really wanted someone to stand up and ask Ning Cheng to hand over the divine grasses. But no one stood up. Most of them even greeted Ning Cheng politely. Apparently, Ning Cheng's words had worked. He wanted to trade all the divine grasses he obtained. Jing Han's expression turned ugly. He found that he had underestimated Ning Cheng. This person seemed to have hidden himself deeper than Dou Jiangshi. City Lord Lu, the fantasy orchard can now close. Let's announce the start of the trading of divine grasses and Dao fruits. I'm sure everyone is a little anxious. Seeing that Lu Jiesheng didn't make an announcement, Holy Emperor Extreme Void stood up and spoke. Lu Jiesheng said with a smile, "Yes, I'm too happy to have delayed this matter." While speaking, Lu Jiesheng raised his hand and put away the 2 array flags. The 3D crystal screen in the middle of the guest hall disappeared without a trace. The hall was already spacious, but now that the 3D crystal screen disappeared, it looked even more spacious. Pill God Ning, I'm Sun Rushuan from the Grand Essence Sea's Sunken Fish Palace. I saw someone refine the Tranquil Bodhi pill and the 9 Orifices Heart pill. I wonder if Pill Sage Ning refined them. A pretty-looking female cultivator stood up and asked Ning Cheng with cupped fists. She even bowed to him. The Grand Essence Sea's Sunken Fish Palace was one of the top 10 sects in the Grand Essence domain. Since Sun Rushuan showed such politeness to Ning Cheng with her Dao essence cultivation, it meant that she had something to ask of Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng chuckled, "I was teleported out from the 2nd floor." Ning Cheng's meaning was clear. Since he was teleported out from the 2nd floor, how could he refine the Tranquil Bodhi pill and the 9 Orifices Heart pill? Sun Rushuan's heart sank when she heard Ning Cheng's words. She suddenly felt some regret. She regretted asking Ning Cheng now. Even if she wanted to ask Ning Cheng, she should have waited until there was no one around. The divine grass needed for the Tranquil Bodhi pill was the Bodhi Earth Lotus. It was an extinct divine grass that couldn't be bought. How could Ning Cheng admit it? If Ning Cheng had admitted it, he wouldn't have been so vague about opening the 13th door of the fantasy orchard. She could only blame herself for being too impatient. Sure enough, more haste, less speed. Chapter 974. All the pill masters who came out, except for Ning Cheng's spiritual storage bag, all the other pill masters' spiritual storage bags were completely exposed. They had a share of the profits with the City Lord Manor. Before exchanging the divine grasses, they had to hand over the divine grasses or Dao fruits belonging to the City Lord Manor to Lu Jiesheng. This time, 5 people had entered the 3rd layer of the fantasy fruit garden, while 3 had entered the 4th layer. It could be said that Lu Jiesheng's harvest this time was very bountiful. However, everyone knew that this time, Lu Jiesheng had suffered a great loss. A total of 11 pill refiners entered the fantasy garden, and 2 of them didn't need to take out any divine grasses for him. Not to mention, Ning Cheng had even opened the 13th door of the fantasy fruit garden. Being able to open the 13th door of the fantasy garden, even if Ning Cheng came out very early, the things that he obtained would definitely not be a trivial matter. Lu Jiesheng was a shrewd person. After collecting all the divine grasses and Dao fruits, he also sat down in the row for the divine grasses. After Lu Jiesheng sat down, he said with a smile, "Now, the transaction of divine herbs and Dao fruits will begin." Pill God Ning's harvest this time is huge. She even obtained some rare divine herbs. Let's start with Pill God Ning today. Ning Cheng understood Lu Jiesheng's meaning, however, he did not care about it at all. He directly took out 2 jade boxes and placed them on the table. "I have a thunder sound heavenly fruit and a fate extinguishing flower." It turned out to be Dao fruits and rare divine grasses. As soon as Ning Cheng took out the things, someone exclaimed in surprise. The thunder heavenly fruit was a very precious Dao fruit. This Dao fruit was a nomological Dao fruit that allowed one to comprehend lightning-type divine abilities. It was very valuable. The thunderclap sky fruit was also called the little thunderclap fruit. Although its value was far inferior to the big thunderclap fruit, it was extremely rare. The extinguishing fate flower hadn't reached the point of extinction, but it was also extremely difficult to find. It was a divine herb that was on the brink of extinction. The fate extinguishing flower could be used to refine the silent dust pill, which could increase a cultivator's chances of comprehending the Dao birth realm. The transaction in the fantasy fruit garden had just started, yet Ning Cheng had already taken out such a precious thing. From this, it could be seen that this transaction was definitely going to be a big surprise. "Pill God Ning, please name your price." A Dao nourishment divine emperor who cultivated lightning god art said. If he obtained this thunder sound heavenly fruit, not only could his divine power improve further, but he could also directly reach the Dao transformation. No one could resist such temptation. Even though he knew that the chances of him getting it were very low, he still wanted to see the price. Ning Cheng cupped his fists. "My first choice is the dim star gold hidden leaf. As long as you have the dim star gold hidden leaf, even if you don't like the Dao fruit I took out, you can still ask for it from me." The guest hall fell into a brief silence. Although the dim star gold hidden leaf was not extinct, its rarity and preciousness were not lower than the fate destruction flower. Seeing that no one in the guest hall stood up to speak for a while, Ning Cheng's heart sank slightly. What he desired the most was not those extinct divine herbs, but the hidden beautiful star gold leaves. It's true that he entered the 13th door of the fantasy garden, and there were many precious divine grasses inside. However, he couldn't find the dim star gold hidden leaf. Therefore, he hoped that other pill refiners who entered the fantasy garden would be able to take out the dim star gold hidden leaf. However, the reaction from the audience disappointed Ning Cheng. There shouldn't be anyone who possessed the hidden beautiful star gold leaf. Otherwise, there would definitely be people who would stand up for him. "I don't have the dim star gold hidden leaf, but I heard that Pill God Ning is an expert in the spear Dao. I have a piece of void cold light iron. I believe that Pill God Ning can use this piece of void cold light iron to refine a peerless spirit artifact long spear. If Pill God Ning wants it, I can add 10 more Dao fruits that can help you comprehend the Dao sculpting realm. If you don't have this Dao fruit, other Dao fruits will do, but the grade cannot be worse than the Thunder Sound Heavenly fruit. In addition to these, I also need 2 reincarnation tears. A long-bearded man with an elegant and refined appearance stood up and waved his hand. A piece of fine iron the size of a hill, emitting a cyan glow, fell to the ground. Although this piece of fine iron had a restriction over it, it still gave off a bone-chilling chill. Everyone in the hall stared at Ning Cheng with wide eyes. Everyone knew about the value of the void cold light iron. However, they didn't think that this transaction would be completed. 11 Dao fruits were priceless. What's more, Mo Wenshang was asking for an exorbitant price. In addition to the 11 Dao fruits, he also wanted 2 reincarnation tears. The reincarnation tears were also known as the reincarnation tears flower. Moreover, its value wasn't any lower than the Bodhi earth lotus. It was also an extinct divine grass. Even if this divine grass wasn't extinct, it was still stronger than most ordinary Dao fruits. Without waiting for Ning Cheng to speak, Jian Sanshan, who stood next to him, sent a sound transmission to Ning Cheng. Brother Ning, this person is Mo Wenshang from the Big Dipper 7 Peaks. This piece of void cold light iron is very famous. It has appeared many times in the past, but it doesn't have much use. I didn't expect it to fall into the hands of Mo Wenshang. There are many artifact crafting experts in the Grand Essence realm, but no one can melt this piece of void cold light iron. It's even more impossible for anyone to use this void cold light iron to refine a weapon. What Jian Sanshan meant was that this thing had a huge reputation and wasn't suitable. The reason he sent a sound transmission to Ning Cheng was to tell Ning Cheng not to trade. According to normal thinking, he would exchange 11 Dao fruits, 10 of which were Dao fruits that could help him comprehend the Dao sculpting realm, plus 2 reincarnation tears for a piece of material that couldn't be turned into a weapon. Even if this material was more precious, most people wouldn't agree to it. I'll trade. Contrary to everyone's expectations, Ning Cheng agreed to the exchange without hesitation. In fact, Ning Cheng had fallen in love with this piece of fine iron the moment he saw it. He knew that he couldn't refine the good fortune spirit spear right now. What he lacked the most was a long spear weapon. Now that someone took out the material to refine a long spear, it was truly a timely help. Ning Cheng had already heard of the reputation of the void cold light iron. It was a material that surpassed top-grade spirit artifacts and was extremely difficult to obtain. Most importantly, he vaguely saw some secrets within it. That is, this piece of void cold light iron contained a certain aura. He had felt this aura from the bestowing lawless fruit. He had only heard of Dao fruits, but he had never heard of Dao materials. Since Mo Wenshang took out so many of these things at once, how could he not be tempted? A material related to the laws of heaven and earth, just how precious was it? After Ning Cheng finished speaking, he waved his hand, and a big jade box and a small jade box flew out of his spiritual storage bag. Ning Cheng then opened the big jade box and saw 10 falling scar fruits neatly placed inside. When he opened the small jade box, he saw 2 reincarnation tears flowers inside. If it weren't for a special situation, Ning Cheng decided not to take out those extinct divine grasses. The void cold light iron was a special situation, and he had to get his hands on it. Not only did he need to refine a long spear for himself, but he also wanted to refine a weapon for Luofei. Luofei had a pure water spirit root, which was the perfect material for refining a weapon from the void cold light iron. He knew that Mo Wenshang wanted him to bargain. The reason he didn't bargain was because he saw Do Jiangshi staring at the void cold light iron with excitement in his eyes. If Do Jiangshi was still the pill sage from the Immortal Corpse sect, Ning Cheng wouldn't have cared about this fellow. After all, he might not be able to take out the reincarnation tears flower. Even if he didn't choose Jing Han, choosing Lesham was still better than choosing Do Jiangshir's zombie face, right? Did you just say that you were willing to pay double the price? Mo Wenshang reacted and stared at Do Jiangshir. Do Jiangshir gave a cold snort. You take it back, and I'll give you 3 times the price. While talking, Do Jiangshir raised his hand and brought out a pile of falling scar dao fruits. At the same time, 6 reincarnation tears flowers appeared on the table. He felt a little annoyed in his heart. He was just a breath too slow, and Ning Cheng's hand had already reached him. If Ning Cheng hadn't put away his things, he could have definitely competed against Mo Wenshang. But now that he had already made an offer, he might as well disgust Ning Cheng and pull some hatred towards him. Chapter 975. Ning Cheng sneered in his heart. Do Jiangshir should have realized that he had recognized him. Therefore, he didn't hide it anymore and didn't hesitate to take out the Dao fruits and the extinct divine grasses. That's right, this guy's power in the Immortal Corpse sect is much greater than mine. Elder Shi. Chun Fei looked at Do Jiangshir in disbelief. He couldn't believe that Do Jiangshir had obtained so many precious Dao fruits. Second, he didn't believe that Do Jiangshir would take out so many precious Dao fruits and even 6 reincarnation tears to exchange for the useless void cold light iron. Although his cultivation level was 1 level higher than Do Jiangshir's, his position in the Immortal Corpse sect was not necessarily higher than Do Jiangshir's. Do Jiangshir nodded at Chun Fei. Elder Chun, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Mo Wenshang's complexion turned even uglier to look at. He had initially thought that he was asking for an exorbitant price, but he never expected that Do Jiangshir would offer 3 times the price of Ning Cheng. Unfortunately, it was only a breath of time slower. If Do Jiangshir's bid had been a breath earlier, he would have never let Ning Cheng take away the void cold light iron. Now that Ning Cheng had already put those things into his ring, if he wanted to make Ning Cheng take them out again, then it would be somewhat difficult. No wonder even Man Huishan couldn't do anything to him. This fellow was truly cunning. The people in the guest hall became even more excited. Just how many extinct divine herbs and Dao fruits had appeared in the fantasy garden this time? Although Ning Cheng obtained it, Do Jiangshir obtained even more. Some people even suspected that Ning Cheng was the pill master who had opened the 13th Dao door because of Do Jiangshir's appearance. Jing Han also stared at Do Jiangshir. He also suspected that Do Jiangshir wasn't telling the truth. It was very likely that Do Jiangshir had entered the 13th door because he had the extinct reincarnation tear flower on him, but Do Jiangshir did not obtain it. Pill God Ning, someone's offer is 3 times your price. Mo Wenshang took in a deep breath and cupped his fists towards Ning Cheng. After all, the price was his own, as such Ning Cheng did not bargain. After Ning Cheng took out the things he wanted, he also agreed to the transaction. If Do Jiangshir hadn't appeared, this transaction would have been a happy one. However, Do Jiangshir's appearance made him feel unbalanced. Ning Cheng understood that Do Jiangshir wanted to draw hatred for him. Most likely, Do Jiangshir looked forward to a fight between him and Mo Wenshang. He smiled and cupped his fists towards Mo Wenshang before speaking. Sacred Emperor Mo indeed has ears everywhere. However, I don't intend to sell the cold light iron to this zombie-faced fellow. Mo Wenshang's face turned gloomy, unable to find the words to refute Ning Cheng. From Ning Cheng's words, it meant that he was the one who bought the things, and he had also agreed to it. Now even if he wanted to sell it, it would be up to him, Ning Cheng, to make the decision. It had nothing to do with him, Mo Wenshang. Seeing that Mo Wenshang could not bring himself to fight with Ning Cheng, Do Jiangshir raised his hand and put away his things. Pill Sage Do is truly capable. You didn't even enter the 13th Dao gate, but you still managed to obtain the reincarnation tear that we didn't even see, Jing Han said sarcastically. That's nothing. I also dug out the reincarnation tears inside. A Tao birth alchemy saint took out a reincarnation tear and said faintly to Jing Han. When Jing Han saw 3 people taking out reincarnation tears, his expression turned ugly. In any case, he was the most promising pill sage in the Grand Essence realm. What he couldn't get, others already got. What's his name? Ning Cheng saw a 3rd person take out an extinct divine grass, reincarnation tear, and immediately sent a voice transmission to Jian Sanshan. Jian Sanshan admired Ning Cheng in his heart. Only now did he understand why Ning Cheng didn't bargain at all. Now that Ning Cheng asked, he immediately replied, "This is Sang Zijua from the Desolate Spirit Palace, a Tao birth alchemy saint. I heard that he once entered the 4th level of the Fantasy Fruit Garden." Desolate Spirit Palace. Ning Cheng immediately thought of Ji Pingzhong, whom he had killed. Ning Cheng didn't expect to meet someone from the Desolate Spirit Palace again. He paid special attention to Sang Zijua and felt that this Sang Zijua was a bit strange. According to normal thinking, even if this fellow obtained the reincarnation tear, he wouldn't have taken it out at this time. If Ning Cheng hadn't confirmed that Do Jiangshi's soul had taken over Do Jiangshi's body, he would have even suspected Sang Zijua. In any case, Sang Zijua and Do Jiangshi both took out the reincarnation tear to help Ning Cheng share some of the pressure. No one blamed Do Jiangshi for Do Jiangshi's actions. Not only did no one blame him, but they also greeted him warmly. When people learned that Do Jiangshi and Sang Zijua both had extinct divine grasses, they, like Ning Cheng, became the most popular targets. Although the following transactions weren't as big as the one between Ning Cheng and Mo Wenshang, they were still lively. Ning Cheng traded out a total of 32 Tao fruits and more than 160 divine grasses. Apart from the reincarnation tear, he didn't take out a second extinct divine grass. The one who traded the most was Do Jiangshi, who traded 221 Tao fruits and a pile of divine grasses. Even those who came to the city master's mansion would trade with him. One could even say that he was the most popular pill saint in this Fantasy Fruit Garden's Tao fruit transaction. Apart from the reincarnation tear, he didn't take out any other extinct divine grasses. Ning Cheng didn't reveal that Do Jiangshi might have been taken over, as he wasn't sure about it. Secondly, with Do Jiangshi's current popularity, if he dared to say that Do Jiangshi had been taken over, he would become cannon fodder, which would give others an excuse to deal with him. After the Fantasy Fruit Garden's Tao fruit transaction ended, Ning Cheng received 160 million spirit crystals in addition to some of the materials he needed. This was because a lot of Tao fruits and divine grasses came out of the Fantasy Fruit Garden. As long as one came here, almost no one would return empty-handed. From the beginning to the end of the transaction, no Bodhi Earth Lotus or 9 Orifices Spirit Glass appeared. Previously, someone had used these 2 extinct divine grasses to refine the Bodhi Pill and 9 Orifices Heart Pill. However, no one admitted to it. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness never left Do Jiangshi, and he didn't know what this fellow had said to Immortal Corpse Sex Elder Chun Fei. At first, Chun Fei looked reluctant, but in the end, he even came to help him with the transaction. Ning Cheng wasn't afraid of Do Jiangshi. This fellow was just an early-stage Tao transformation cultivator. Even if Do Jiangshi's essence spirit was stronger, Ning Cheng could deal with it. Ning Cheng was afraid that this fellow wouldn't come to deal with him and would just hide in the Immortal Corpse sect. As long as this fellow dared to find trouble with him, he would definitely snatch that wood-attributed God Spirit vein. He had been coveting this God Spirit vein for a long time. After the Tao fruit transaction ended, except for some holy emperors who had good relations with Lu Jiesheng, everyone left. Brother Ning Cheng, if anything happens, you must come to the Pill Association to find me. Cheng Ho Tian deliberately called out to Ning Cheng and said loudly. Ning Cheng understood Cheng Ho Tian's meaning. He wanted to support him. After thanking him, he hurriedly left the city master's mansion with Jian Sanshan. He wanted to wake Yan Ji up in a hurry. Several people watched Ning Cheng leave. They also knew that even if they wanted to deal with Ning Cheng, this wasn't the place to do it. Not to mention that Ning Cheng had Cheng Hotian's support, even Ning Cheng himself wasn't someone to be trifled with. If he was easy to deal with, would Man Huishan be helpless against him? Yuxiu, you and Ning Cheng snatched the extraterritorial spirit spring stone gate. What kind of person do you think he is? Outside the heaven-essenced sacred city's city master's mansion, a beautiful woman looked at Ning Cheng's departing back and asked in a deep voice. This woman was Qin Rushuan, the one who had asked about Ning Cheng's Bodhi Earth Lotus in the guest hall of the city master's mansion. She came from one of the top 10 sects, the Grand Essence Sea's Sunken Fish Palace. Standing next to her was a young and beautiful woman with an extremely fair complexion. Ning Cheng also knew this woman. Her name was Zhongmen Yuxiu. She had an arrogant heart, but her strength was average. Back in the extraterritorial spirit spring, when she snatched the 10 stone gates, someone swept her from the 2nd stone gate all the way to the 8th stone gate. That was because Ning Cheng had killed Guohauge and suppressed Ji Pingzhong. Otherwise, she would have most likely occupied the 10th stone gate. He's very strong, and his strength can sweep away anyone in the same realm. But he doesn't know how to behave. His eyes grow on his forehead. Zhongmen Yuxiu said with a calm tone. She clearly remembered what Ning Cheng had said to her. When she wanted to snatch Yan Xishuang's stone gate, Ning Cheng had told her that Yan Xishuang was his friend. If she dared to snatch it, she couldn't blame him for being impolite. Because of this, she didn't have a good impression of Ning Cheng. If I betrothed you to Ning Cheng, would you be willing? Qin Rushuan suddenly asked. Ah! Zhongmen Yuxiu's heart started beating wildly when she heard this. She truly didn't have a good impression of Ning Cheng, but it was because Ning Cheng didn't give her any face and directly swept her from the 4th stone gate to the 8th stone gate. But it was impossible for her to not care about Ning Cheng, a powerhouse in the pill deity realm. She never thought about becoming Ning Cheng's Dao companion before. But now that Aunt Xian mentioned it, she suddenly had this thought in her heart. What would happen if she became the Dao companion of a powerhouse like Ning Cheng? Ning Cheng's appearance was much more handsome than Ji He's. More importantly, he was a powerhouse in the Dao of alchemy and a friend of Pill Union's Cheng Ho Tian. She didn't care about this thought at all. But once it appeared, it grew wildly in her heart like weeds. She quickly thought of Yan Xishuang. Yan Xishuang was more beautiful than her, and she was also an acquaintance of Ning Cheng. If Ning Cheng wanted to find a Dao companion, he would definitely choose Yan Xishuang first. It shouldn't be possible. Without waiting for Zhongmen Yuxiu to answer, Qin Rushuan shook her head. That Ning Cheng seems reckless, but he's actually very scheming. I don't know what kind of deal he had with Man Huishan, but he could even put aside a threat like Man Huishan. He didn't care about City Lord Lug either. Instead, he made friends with Pill Union's pill sage like Cheng Ho Tian or Dao transformation pill deities. Qin Rushuan paused and frowned slightly. After a while, she continued, maybe Yueshu will let him stay in the Sunken Fish Palace. This meant that Zhongmen Yuxiu's charm wasn't enough to keep Ning Cheng in the Sunken Fish Palace. Aunt Xian, senior sister Yueshu is our Sunken Fish Palace's number 1. Zhongmen Yuxiu knew that she couldn't compare to Yueshu. Qin Rushuan reached out to stop Zhongmen Yuxiu and said in a deep voice, not only do we want him to help us refine the Peace Bodhi pill, but more importantly, our Sunken Fish Palace needs an alchemist like him. If I'm not wrong, he's at least a Dao-raising pill sage. Since the Grand Essence realm shattered, it hasn't been stable. But now, the major forces in the Grand Essence domain have begun to stir up trouble again. My Sunken Fish Palace is just too weak. How is that possible? How can he be a Dao-raising pill sage? Zhongmen Yuxiu's eyes widened. She couldn't believe Qin Rushuan's words at all. Qin Rushuan sighed, I don't believe my guess either. But my intuition tells me that I'm not wrong. He should be living in a cave on Sword 3 Mountain. It's not appropriate to go to him today. Let's visit him tomorrow. Chapter 976. Ning Cheng, carrying Yan Ji on his back, took Xian Xiu and Wu Qihong out of the Sword Three Mountains immortal cave and returned to the Dao-seeking rest stop. The first thing he needed to do after returning to the rest stop was to wake up Yan Ji. The heavenly five elements fruit was the only thing that would not harm a cultivator's body. In order to not let others disturb Yan Ji's awakening, Ning Cheng deliberately added several restrictions around the room. He also told Xian Xiu and Wu Qihong to refuse all visitors. The five elements heavenly fruit was milky white in color and emitted a faint fragrance. Ning Cheng opened the jade box and took out a five elements heavenly fruit. He then raised his hand and cast a clear water technique onto the five elements heavenly fruit. Ning Cheng was probably the only person who would use the clear water technique to wash the Dao fruit after eating it. If it was anyone else, they would never use the clear water technique to wash their Dao fruits. As the clear water technique fell on the five elements Dao fruit, Ning Cheng's spiritual sense immediately caught a faint spiritual sense imprint. Ning Cheng felt surprised. Washing his Dao fruits was just a habit. If he ate it himself, it wouldn't have mattered. After all, this Dao fruit was for Yan Ji. Unexpectedly, there was a faint spiritual will imprint on the Dao fruit. If he hadn't used the clear water technique, it would have been very difficult for him to discover this spiritual sense imprint. Ning Cheng's expressions turned a little ugly to look at. Whether the spiritual sense imprint on the Dao fruit was Jing Han's doing or not, it had something to do with him. This spiritual force imprint couldn't be caught at all. If it weren't for his powerful spiritual force and the clear water art landing on the Dao fruit, he would have missed it if he wasn't careful. Ning Cheng raised his hand and rolled up this faint spiritual sense imprint, before sealing it in a jade box. He then took out another Dao fruit. Sure enough, Ning Cheng found a faint trace of spiritual sense imprint in the other Dao fruit. After sealing the two faint spiritual sense imprints in the jade box, Ning Cheng used his spiritual consciousness to search the two five elements heavenly fruits for a long time. Only after confirming that there was nothing wrong with them did he open one of them and put it into Yan Ji's mouth. As soon as the Dao fruit entered his mouth, it melted into fragrant fruit juice and disappeared. Yan Ji quickly consumed a five elements heavenly fruit, but Yan Ji still remained unconscious. Ning Cheng didn't take out the second Dao fruit for Yan Ji to consume. Instead, he just sat quietly beside Yan Ji. If this five elements heavenly fruit couldn't wake Yan Ji up, then no matter how many five elements heavenly fruits he gave Yan Ji, it would all be in vain. Time flowed by in silence. Ning Cheng gazed at Yan Ji's delicate and refined face, and in his mind emerged the scene of him and Yan Ji meeting for the first time. It was on the way to the Law's Way, when Ke Penghai, who had the cultivation of profound core realm, wanted to take the opportunity to kill him, in order to please Nalan Rushua. At that time, it was Yan Ji, who he did not know, who stood up and stopped Ke Penghai. Nalan Rushua couldn't understand why Yan Ji stood up to help him. She even asked Yan Ji not to meddle in other people's business. As for Yan Ji's words, he still remembered them clearly. Everyone's eyes represent their own hearts. Although it's the same thing, it's just that the things we see are different. After that, she invited a cultivator with the cultivation of essence building 4th level to join her team. Her approach made the entire team unable to understand it, but she still did it. After he fell into the Blood River Mountains, Yan Ji did not hesitate to rush into the Blood River, wanting to save him, but the result was that she also fell into the bottom of the Blood River. At that time, he only knew her, or rather, he had only saved her once in the Blood River Mountains. After he rescued her and Xiang Jilan from the bottom of the Blood River, because he did not come out, she once again jumped into the Blood River, and finally got lost at the bottom of the Blood River. Ning Cheng had seen a lot of people who were ungrateful or did not put such things in their hearts, but Yan Ji was like this. Even if it was just a drop of water, she did not forget to repay it, and even took the initiative to jump into the bottom of the blood river several times. This was the first time he had met such a woman. After coming out of the law's way, he was chased by the three major forces. When her elder sister Yen Yu wanted to kill him, she only spoke a single sentence: "Whoever touches him, I will kill them." At that time, her sanity had not yet recovered. Saying those words was just a kind of obsession in her heart. In order to find him, she came from the Lu continent to the Tian continent. From the Tian continent to the starry skies, from the starry skies to the plains. She cultivated like crazy, regardless of the quality of the pills. As long as it could improve her cultivation, she would eat it. If he had not met Nalan Rushue, he would not have known that Yan Ji just wanted to improve her cultivation as soon as possible, and then go back to find him. She had agreed to undergo spiritual cleansing, just to bring a message to Nalan Rushue. Although Shui Yueka did not know what the message was, but Ning Cheng guessed that the message should have something to do with him. Ning Cheng looked down at Yan Ji, and suddenly felt that he owed this woman too much. What he had done for her, was to take care of her in the law's way for a period of time. Ning Cheng's thoughts were getting further and further away. He gently picked up Yan Ji, and lowered his head, just to get a closer look. Surrounded by darkness, Yan Ji hid in a corner of the darkness. She felt a little cold. She could not see the light, she could not see anything, there was only darkness, and the cold death intent that permeated the darkness. She did not know how long she had been hiding in this corner of the darkness. She wanted to force her way out, but her body seemed to have turned stiff, unable to move even the slightest bit. Gradually, the darkness became darker and darker, even oppressing her soul. She found it difficult to breathe. She only had one thought in her mind, that is, am I going to die? At the moment of her death, she tried to remember some beautiful things, trying to make herself look forward to it before she died. But she could not remember anything, only a name kept lingering in her consciousness. She had forgotten everything, but she could not forget this name. Ning Cheng, that's right, Ning Cheng was very important to her. Why was he very important? But her thoughts could not stretch out, and could only be tied to these two words. She kept thinking about these two words. Suddenly these two words flew away from her eyes, and her memory gradually blurred. She was extremely anxious in her heart. These two words seemed to be the only thing she could remember. If these two words disappeared from her memory, then her consciousness and soul would also disappear. She struggled, trying to hold on to the only thing she could remember. At this time, a bright light emitted from the two words that were about to fly away. The light gradually dispelled the darkness around her, and she gradually saw clearly. The range of the light grew larger and larger, and her memory was like this light, slowly spreading, as if it was slowly increasing. Her world that was about to dissipate also became clear because of this light, and her heart unexpectedly gained a trace of vitality. She struggled to open her eyes. She could not let this opportunity disappear. As her memory became clearer, Ning Cheng's image also became clearer. With a strong will to live and Ning Cheng's name, she finally opened her eyes, and saw the appearance of Ning Cheng in her memory. I finally saw you. I said that when I saw you again, I would say that I would marry you. Yan Ji's voice was a little hoarse. Staring at Ning Cheng's eyes, she raised her head slightly and kissed Ning Cheng's lowered lips. Just as their lips touched, Yan Ji closed her eyes again and fell asleep. Yan Ji, are you awake? Ning Cheng asked in surprise. He had just lowered his head when Yan Ji opened her eyes. This meant that the five elements heavenly fruit really had its uses, which allowed Yan Ji to wake up. Yan Ji once again fell asleep, but Ning Cheng felt relieved in his heart. Yan Ji did not faint this time, but rather fell into a deep sleep, and would soon wake up again. Thank you, Yan Ji. Ning Cheng once again lowered his head and kissed Yan Ji's lips. He knew that Yan Ji did not really realize his existence. It should be just a subconscious action, or maybe she thought that she saw him in a dream. Ning Cheng's guess was right. Yan Ji did think that she saw him in a dream. After she fell asleep once again, Ning Cheng's appearance clearly appeared in her consciousness. She heard that before dying, one would see the person they wanted to see the most. No, her feeling was so real, and she really did come into contact with Ning Cheng. Was that not a dream? Yan Ji tried to open her eyes again. She finally saw Ning Cheng. This time, her consciousness was incomparably clear. Ning Cheng, is it really you? Is this really? Yan Ji's voice was still a little hoarse, with a hint of trembling. She had not even finished her words, when her eyes started to mist up, and Ning Cheng's figure instantly blurred. Yan Ji felt anxious in her heart. She wanted to reach out her hand to wipe away the blurriness in her eyes, but her hand simply could not move. Ning Cheng raised his hand and gently wiped away the tears in Yan Ji's eyes. Junior apprentice Sister Ji, no one will dare to use spiritual cleansing on you in the future. Wu. Yan Ji finally affirmed that the person in front of her was Ning Cheng. She really was lying in Ning Cheng's arms. She could no longer contain the loneliness in her heart, and tears started to pour down her cheeks. She never thought that one day she would cry like this. She had an independent personality, and had always borne it alone. She had encountered too many dangers by herself, and had seen too many life and death situations, to the point where she could face death with a heart as calm as still water. But now she could not hold back the sadness in her heart. Perhaps it was not sadness, but happiness that came from the depths of her heart, an unspeakable joy. Ning Cheng once again gently wiped away the tears in Yan Ji's eyes. When this matter is over, I will take you back to see Luofei. Yan Ji looked at Ning Cheng with wide eyes. At this moment, she finally had the answer to everything she had experienced. Her body also gained a little more strength, and she subconsciously wanted to raise her hand. Feeling Yan Ji's body getting softer and softer, Ning Cheng knew that Yan Ji was gradually recovering. Although she could not cultivate, but he believed that as long as he worked hard, he would definitely be able to find the hidden beautiful star gold leaf for her. Yan Ji finally raised her hand, and gently hugged Ning Cheng. She could feel a strong heartbeat. Her face also felt a little hot. This was the first time she had hugged a man while she was conscious. This kind of feeling gave her a sense of stability and peace. Chapter 977. Junior apprentice Sister Yan Ji recovered. Xin Xiu looked at Yan Ji, who came out with Ning Cheng, in surprise. Even Wu Qihong, who wasn't good with words, came up to congratulate her. Both he and Xin Xiu knew that Ning Cheng cared a lot about Yan Ji. Thank you, Senior Apprentice Sister Xin Xiu and Senior Apprentice Brother Wu. Yan Ji had already heard Ning Cheng introduce Xin Xiu and Wu Qihong, so she quickly greeted them. Ning Cheng shook his head. Junior Apprentice Sister Ji just woke up. Her foundation hasn't recovered yet, so she can't cultivate yet. I have to find the beautiful star gold hidden leaf before I can help her recover completely. Beautiful star gold hidden leaf? Wu Qihong repeated in shock. He and Xin Xiu were both alchemy masters, so they naturally knew about the difficulty of finding the beautiful star gold hidden leaf. If they tried to find it, they wouldn't be able to find it in a lifetime. Although they knew about Ning Cheng's abilities, they didn't think that Ning Cheng could find the beautiful star gold hidden leaf. Ning Cheng sighed. In any case, I have to find the beautiful star gold hidden leaf. Although Yan Ji couldn't cultivate, her essence, qi, and spirit were still in good condition. Hearing Ning Cheng's words, she whispered, "It doesn't matter even if I can't find it. I'm already satisfied." Big Brother Ning, a man named Percy came to visit just now. I asked him to wait outside. Xin Xiu said in a timely manner. Percy. Ning Cheng immediately remembered the second rank of the Grand Essence's 12 sacred children, the one with a face full of stubble. According to Jian Sanshan, Percy came from the mysterious Void Star sect. This fellow had looked for him several times and even helped him in the city master's mansion. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness swept out and found that Percy was still waiting outside. He quickly opened the restriction and cupped his fists before speaking. "Dao friend Percy, please come in." Because I have some things to take care of, I hope that Tao friend Percy can forgive me. Percy laughed and returned the greeting with cupped fists. Pill Sage Ning, it's already a great joy for me that you can see me. Ning Qing smiled and invited Percy into the living room to sit down. It was not surprising that Percy knew that he was a pill saint. Percy was probably not the only one who knew that he was a pill saint. After pouring a cup of spiritual tea for Percy, Ning Qing asked, Tao friend Percy has been looking for me several times. Is there something you want from me? Percy awkwardly nodded, and then spoke in a dignified manner, it is indeed so, because I would like to ask Tao friend Ning to refine a batch of heaven-extending bone vein pills. Ning Cheng's hand that was holding the cup of spiritual tea suddenly stopped, he even asked, do you want to refine the heaven-replenishing bone vein pill? Ning Cheng naturally knew about the heaven-extending bone-marking pill. It was the most difficult pill to refine among all Dao transformation pills. Even if a Dao transformation pill sage tried to refine it, the success rate would be minimal. This kind of pill had only one function, detoxification. There were 10 most powerful poisons in the world, and the vein bone poison was one of them, ranked 10th. After being poisoned by this poison, the entire body's bones would slowly be corroded by the veined patterns. His primordial spirit was imprisoned in his bones, unable to leave his body. Some powerful sage emperors directly abandoned their physical bodies after being poisoned by the stripe bone poison. But after their primordial spirit and spiritual soul found a new physical body, or even reconstructed their physical bodies, the stripe bone poison would continue to corrode their bones like maggots in tarsal bones. There was only one pill that could cure the tattoo bone poison, and that pill was the sky-extending tattoo bone pill. The heaven-replenishing bone-marking pill was a Dao transformation pill with 3 main divine grasses. One of them was the golden cicada heart fruit. In addition to the golden cicada heart fruit, refining the heaven-replenishing bone-marking pill also required 2 kinds of divine grasses, turbid sky zoysia and azure frost nether branch. The value of the turbid sky zoysia and azure frost nether branch was no lower than the golden cicada heart fruit. They were also divine grasses that contained the laws of heaven and earth. One could say that the materials for a batch of heaven-replenishing bone-marking pill were priceless treasures. It was extremely difficult to collect these spiritual objects. Even if one gathered all the materials for this batch of medicinal pills, almost no one could refine this batch of heaven-replenishing bone-marking pill. Not only were the materials for the heaven-replenishing bone-marking pill difficult to find, but it was also the most difficult pill to refine among the Dao transformation pills. Even some Dao essence pill saints might not be able to refine it. This was because this batch of Dao pills contained 3 different kinds of law Dao fruits or divine grasses. Fusing them together and turning them into Dao pills, one could imagine the difficulty involved. That's right. We've already collected the materials for a batch of heaven-replenishing bone-marking pill. We just want to ask Pill Sage Ning to refine a batch of heaven-replenishing bone-marking pill. Percy spoke in a cautious tone. When he answered, he even stood up. Ning Cheng shook his head, I'm sorry. I'm afraid that I'm still lacking to refine the heaven-replenishing bone-marking pill. The Pill Discussion Grand Assembly is about to begin. At that time, all the alchemy powerhouses in the Grand Essence realm will gather together. I think Dao friend Percy should look for an alchemy master at the Pill Discussion Grand Assembly, not a half-baked alchemy master like me. Ning Cheng refused this kind of thing without hesitation. What a joke, how precious were the materials for a batch of heaven-replenishing bone-marking pill. If he broke it, he couldn't afford to pay for it. If Percy had obtained a few batches of these materials, he might have considered it. But with only a batch of materials for a batch of heaven-replenishing bone-marking pill, he didn't even think about it. After Percy heard Ning Cheng's words, he sighed and bowed to Ning Cheng, Pill Sage Ning, I know that if there's anyone in the Grand Essence realm who can refine the heaven-replenishing bone-marking pill, it's only you, Pill Sage Ning. Ning Cheng frowned slightly, Dao friend Percy, I think you might have misunderstood something. Even if I refined the Harmony Bodhi pill and the 9 orifices heart pill in the fantasy garden, I wouldn't be able to refine the heaven replenishing bone marking pill at that level. Percy spoke up with even more sincerity. I know that pill sage Ning is at least a Tao transformation pill sage. There aren't many Tao transformation pill sages in the Grand Essence realm who can refine special grade purple heaven pills. Even the Pill Union's Association Master, Tao Essence Pill Sage Sichin Chiotian, can only reach this level. As long as Pill Sage Ning is willing to help, even if we fail in the end, my Void Star sect promises that we will never let Pill Sage Ning take any responsibility. If the refinement succeeds, we only need half of the heaven replenishing bone marking pill. The other half will be given to Pill Sage Ning as a reward. Apart from that, Pill Sage Ning can choose anything from my Void Star sect. At the same time, I promise that all of Pill Sage Ning's opponents in the Grand Essence realm will be my Void Star sect's opponents. Ning Cheng's expression changed when he heard this. He had never been to a mysterious sect before. But he knew that in the Grand Essence realm, every mysterious sect was no weaker than the top 10 sections. Yet, such a sect allowed him to choose anything he wanted. From this, it showed how important this person with the bone marking poison was to the Void Star sect. Moreover, Ning Cheng knew who he had offended. Barbarian Dragon Clan's Dragon Emperor Man Huishan, River Luo Sacred Sect's Tong Mingzi, and even Heaven Essenced Sacred City's City Master Mansion had a problem with him. The Void Star sect was willing to take on so many powerful opponents, so it would be strange if the people who had been poisoned were simple. Ning Cheng took in a deep breath again but still shook his head. Sorry, my strength is limited. I can't refine this furnace of medicinal pills. He wanted to help, but he had a sense of propriety in his heart. If he failed to refine such an important furnace of medicinal pills, the Void Star sect would definitely go crazy. With his current strength, he couldn't afford the madness of the Void Star sect. Don't look at how many people he had offended. In fact, he knew that he wouldn't have any problems on the surface. Man Huishan wouldn't dare to do anything to him, and Tong Mingzi wouldn't dare to do anything to him. As for the shrewd Lu Jiesheng, he wouldn't do anything to him in the open. Plus, he had a friend in Cheng Ho Tian. In fact, his position in Heaven Essence Sacred City was as stable as Mount Tai. Once he left Heaven Essence Sacred City, even Man Huishan wouldn't be able to catch him, let alone Tong Mingzi. He had already thought about this a long time ago. But once he offended the Void Star sect, it would be a completely different story. This balance would immediately break, and he would most likely have to flee for his life. Then I won't bother Brother Ning. Percy's eyes flashed with disappointment before turning gloomy. He understood Ning Cheng's scruples. Since Ning Cheng didn't want to refine it, he couldn't do anything about it. Ning Cheng also felt a little apologetic. He truly couldn't guarantee that this furnace of heaven replenishing mark bone pills would be a success. If he could guarantee it, he wouldn't have cared. Percy walked to the door and suddenly looked back. I almost forgot one thing. If you want the dim star gold hidden leaf, you can go to the Grand Essence Ruins Burial Shadow Blue Sand. An elder of my Void Star sect saw the dim star gold hidden leaf in the Burial Shadow Blue Sand when he was looking for the Cyan Frost Underworld branch. I asked that elder not long ago, but he didn't remember the specific location. Otherwise, I could have engraved a jade strip for you. Don't go there. Yen Ji interrupted Percy in panic. She lived in the Grand Essence Ruins for many years and was too familiar with the Burial Shadow Blue Sand. She knew that the lowest cultivation to enter the Burial Shadow Blue Sand was at least a Tao Transformation Holy Emperor. Only a few of them could come out alive. Even if she died, she didn't want Ning Cheng to go to the Grand Essence Ruins Burial Shadow Blue Sand. Why don't you use this to trade with me? As long as you tell me where you know the possible location of the dim star gold hidden leaf, maybe I will agree to help you refine pills. Ning Cheng looked at Percy and asked calmly. Percy showed a faint smile. Pill Sage Ning, I appreciated your character back in the City Master's mansion. Whether you regard me as a friend or not, I, Percy, regard you as a friend. I, Percy, have never done anything like blackmailing a friend. His tone revealed a strong sense of pride. Ning Cheng had dealt with the Grand Essence's 12 sacred children too many times, and each of the Grand Essence's 12 sacred children was a proud person. But Ning Cheng appreciated Percy's pride. It was a pride that came from the bones, not the kind of arrogance that came from reputation. Ning Cheng took a few steps forward and patted Percy on the shoulder. Percy, thank you for treating me as a friend. I'll refine your furnace of heaven replenishing mark bone pills. Pill Sage Ning. Percy looked at Ning Cheng in disbelief. He had made a promise that no one could refuse, but Ning Cheng didn't want to take the risk to help his Void Star sect refine pills. But now, he just casually told Ning Cheng where the dim star gold hidden leaf might appear, and Ning Cheng agreed. He quickly reacted and quickly turned around with joy. Thank you, Pill Sage Ning. Even if you fail in refining the pill, even if I, Percy, die, I won't let you suffer any harm. Ning Cheng smiled. I believe in you, which is why I agreed to help you refine pills. Don't call me Pill Sage Ning from now on. Just call me Ning Cheng. I'll treat you as a friend. Percy laughed. People who know me call me Shihuzi. Brother Ning, you can also call me Shihuzi from now on. Ning Cheng looked at the bearded Percy and couldn't help but feel that this nickname really suited him. Chapter 978. Brother Ning, I'll immediately send a message back to the sect and ask my Void Star Sect's elder to bring the medicinal herbs to the Heaven Essence Sacred City. Percy got Ning Cheng's consent and quickly said his goodbyes. Ning Cheng initially thought that he would have to make a trip to the Void Star Sect. But now that Percy said that he would bring medicinal herbs for alchemy to the Heaven Essence Sacred City, it meant that he didn't want to let him run away. He didn't want to go to these mysterious sections. But after learning about the origin of the beautiful star gold hidden leaves, he immediately wanted to head to the Grand Essence ruins to find the beautiful star gold hidden leaves. Moreover, even though he had agreed to help her concoct pills, he still had to consider his own safety. Percy should be trustworthy, but Percy was just a divine emperor who had just reached the Tao molding stage. It was imaginable how much authority he had in the Void Star sect. In Heaven Essence Sacred City, at least Cheng Ho Tian could help him. After sending off Percy, Ning Cheng looked at the worried Yan Ji and spoke, Junior Apprentice Sister Ji, you don't have to worry, I will not put myself in danger. If others can come out of the buried shadow blue sands, I can too. Yan Ji nodded and did not continue to persuade Ning Cheng. She would always be with Ning Cheng. Even if she fell, she would fall together with him. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. During these 10 days, Ning Cheng did not even take a step out of his room in the rest stop. Inside his room, he transplanted all the divine grasses and Tao fruit trees into the mysterious yellow beads world. At the same time, he also stayed in his room to refine Tao pills. No one knew how many divine grasses and Tao fruits he had obtained. One of them was preparing for the upcoming pill discussion grand gathering, while the other didn't want any problems to occur while refining the sky replenishing bone marking pill. He had many Tao fruits and divine herbs, so he could refine all kinds of Tao pills at will. To gain a deeper control over the Tao fruits laws, Ning Cheng even specifically refined several kinds of Tao fruits or Tao pills that fuse Tao fruits with law divine grasses. As Ning Cheng refined furnace after furnace of Tao pills, Ning Cheng completely immersed himself in the fusion of various Tao fruit laws and the insights into the Tao of alchemy. Seeing that the pill discussion grand assembly was about to begin, Ning Cheng put away the pill furnace, opened the restriction and walked out of the room. He decided to bring Yan Ji, Xian Xiu and Wu Qihong to the pill discussion conference. Xian Xiu and Wu Qihong weren't qualified to participate in the pill conference. As an alchemist, there were definitely many benefits to participating in this kind of event. Both Xian Xiu and Wu Qihong were alchemy masters struggling at the bottom. Now that they decided to follow him, Ning Cheng wanted to help them reach a higher level. Because of the damage to her foundation, Yan Ji couldn't cultivate. Therefore, she had no choice but to follow behind Ning Cheng to learn about medicinal herbs. "Big brother Ning, someone named Xin Rushuan wants to see you." She said that she's from the Sunken Fish Palace. Xin Xiu hurried over when she saw Ning Cheng coming out of seclusion. "Xin Rushuan of the Sunken Fish Palace." Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness fell outside the door and immediately saw the woman who had questioned him and Bothan in the city master's mansion. To be honest, Ning Cheng did not like this woman at all. Percy knew that he could refine the purple heaven pill, but he also knew that he shouldn't say it in the city lord's mansion. Knowing was one thing, being confirmed by everyone was another. This woman had no qualms about asking about him and Pu Dan in front of everyone. She didn't care about him at all, which made him very unhappy. There were two other women besides Xin Rushuan, one of whom Ning Cheng knew, Zhongmen Yuxiu. This woman had high standards but low ability, and he had even scolded her once. Standing on the other side of Xin Rushuan was a woman with a veil over her face. Looking at her figure, she looked even softer than Lan Bing of the Blue True Hope tribe. "Invite them in." This time, Ning Cheng didn't take the initiative to open the restriction. Instead, he let Xin Xiu do it. If it weren't for the fact that Xin Rushuan was already a Dao essence cultivator and came from the Sunken Fish Palace, he wouldn't even want to meet her. Sunken Fish Palace's Xin Rushuan greets Pil Sage Ning. Xin Rushuan seemed to know that she had acted a bit rashly in the city master's mansion. When she came in, she didn't face Ning Cheng as a Dao essence cultivator. But when she spoke, she still addressed Ning Cheng as Pil Sage. "Senior Xin, please sit down." After Ning Cheng let the three sit down, he poured a few cups of spirit tea. Whether they liked it or not, they were guests here. So, they still had to be polite on the surface. "I don't dare to call you senior. If Pil Sage Ning looks up to me, you can just call me senior apprentice sister Ru Xian." As Xin Rushuan spoke, her eyes swept over Yan Ji, who sat next to Ning Cheng. Yan Ji looked weak, but her appearance was clearly better than Zhongmen Yuxiu's. Even compared to Yueshu, she wasn't much weaker. If it weren't for Yueshu coming to Heaven Essence Sacred City, she would have visited Ning Cheng 10 days ago. But now, it seemed that Ning Cheng already had a Dao companion. Ning Cheng showed a slight smile. "This junior and senior's cultivation is worlds apart. It's only right for me to address you as senior." Xin Rushuan sighed in her heart. Ning Cheng's words meant that she couldn't climb up to him, and that he had to return to his own path. She knew that her words in the city master's mansion had left a bad impression on Ning Cheng. Zhongmen Yuxiu knew a bit about Ning Cheng's temperament and didn't find it surprising. The woman with a veil over her face sitting next to Xin Rushuan looked at Ning Cheng in surprise. She naturally knew that Ning Cheng was a rogue cultivator. It was absolutely rare for a rogue cultivator to refuse the goodwill of one of the top 10 sects, the Sunken Fish Palace. Aunt Xian's meaning was clear. That is, the Sunken Fish Palace wants to make friends with you. To be honest, she felt a little reluctant for Aunt Xian to call her to Heaven Essence Sacred City to meet an alchemist. For the sake of the Sunken Fish Palace, she didn't show this emotion. But now, Ning Cheng's performance made her a little unhappy. What kind of place was the Sunken Fish Palace? Not to mention that it was filled with beautiful women, it was also one of the top 10 sections. Ning Cheng was just a rogue cultivator. What confidence did he have to refuse such goodwill? Xin Rushuan sighed in her heart, but on the surface, she smiled and said, "I want to find Pil Sage Ning to ask for 2-piece Bodhi pills." "Pil Sage Ning, please name the price." After saying that, she seemed to feel that her words lacked warmth and added, "My Sunken Fish Palace has a sunken fish ice pond, which is especially suitable for women with water attributes to cultivate. Cultivating in it for a day is more effective than cultivating outside for a month. Even if you don't have a water attribute, cultivating in it would have a dozen times the effect. In addition, the sunken fish ice pond also has a spiritual cleansing effect. If Pill Sage Ning doesn't want anything else, you can also take your Tao companion to the sunken fish ice pond to cultivate. She continued to express goodwill to Ning Cheng and indirectly asked if Ning Cheng had a Tao companion. When Ning Cheng heard that it was suitable for women with water attributes to cultivate, he thought of Luofei. Luofei had a water spirit root. What would happen if she could cultivate in the sunken fish ice pond? He had refined several bottles of peace Bodhi pills. As for spirit crystals, he had a lot of them now. He didn't lack divine herbs. Thinking of this, Ning Cheng took out a jade bottle with 2 peace Bodhi pills and handed it to Tsin Rushuan. Senior Sister Ru Xian, here are 2 peace Bodhi pills. As for the spirit crystals, I don't want them. I might need to borrow the sunken fish ice pond from the sunken fish palace in the future. Tsin Rushuan sighed in her heart. This Ning Cheng was too realistic. He had called her Senior Tsin before, saying that it was only right to do so. He clearly didn't want to have anything to do with the sunken fish palace. Now that he heard about the sunken fish ice pond, he immediately changed his address to Senior Sister Ru Xian. However, she was also secretly surprised by Ning Cheng's ability. He took out a precious spirit pill like the Peace Bodhi pill without any discount. This at least showed that she didn't find the wrong person. Zhongming Yuxiu's face remained calm. She had been outside for a long time and felt that Ning Cheng's reaction was normal. A trace of contempt flashed in the eyes of the woman with a veil over her face. Did this kind of person who changed according to the wind deserve her favor? She wanted a Tao companion who had a firm and unyielding temperament, not a fickle person who would change his mind for a mere ice pond. Ning Cheng naturally didn't know what this woman was thinking. In fact, he didn't know why Tsin Kai-Xian came here with 2 attendants. He only knew that since he wanted Luofei to cultivate in the sunken fish palace, it was necessary to build a relationship with Tsin Kai-Xian. Even if he knew that the other party despised him, he wouldn't care. This was a transaction. He had paid for the things he wanted, but he hadn't gotten them back yet. Naturally, he couldn't not build a relationship. Tsin Kai-Xian opened the jade bottle, and sure enough, there were 2 Bodhi pills, and they were top-grade divine pills. She quickly stood up and thanked Ning Cheng. Many thanks for Pill Sage Ning's Bodhi pill. If you need any help from this Tsin Kai-Xian, Pill Sage Ning can also come to me. She did not mention the marriage with Ning Cheng again. Ning Cheng obviously had no intention of building a relationship with the sunken fish palace. If she continued to mention the marriage, she would be asking for trouble. The Pill Discussion Grand Assembly was held at the Heaven Essence Sacred City's Pill Union headquarters. When Ning Cheng arrived at the Pill Union with Yan Ji, Xian Xiu, and Wu Qihong, thousands of people had already gathered at the Pill Discussion Public Square. The Elixir Discussion Plaza of the Elixir Association was not an open-air plaza, but a plaza inside the Elixir Association. Many powerful alchemists had carved their own alchemy Tao runes on this plaza. Even if some low-level alchemists came here to listen to the alchemy conference, they would still be able to comprehend many things from these alchemy Tao runes. The plaza was in the shape of a fan. Those with lower alchemy standards could only line up at the back. At the top of the plaza was an alchemy demonstration platform. It was also a place for alchemists to discuss alchemy and compete in alchemy. The Pill Discussion Grand Assembly not only had alchemists come on stage to discuss the Tao of alchemy, but they also had to compete against each other if their alchemy standards were not consistent. Only the few alchemists who won in the end were qualified to represent the Grand Essence realm to compete with other realms in the Pill Discussion Grand Essence realm. A Tao sculpting pill deity could only bring 1 person into the Pill Discussion Public Square. Ning Cheng brought 3 people with him. He had to take out a Tao Transformation Pill Deity's qualification card to enter. "Brother Ning, I've been waiting for you for a while." Jian Sanchen's voice came in time. When Ning Cheng went into seclusion, he had looked for Ning Cheng several times. Because he hadn't seen Ning Cheng, he decided to wait outside the pill discussion public square. With Jian San Shan, a Dao transformation pill deity, Ning Cheng didn't even need a Dao transformation pill deity's qualification card. Together with Jian San Shan, they entered the pill discussion Grand Assembly's Dao transformation pill deity seats. Pill deity Ning. Ning Cheng had just sat down when Sun Kai-Xian, with two female disciples, sat down not far from the pill discussion public square and took the initiative to greet Ning Cheng. The seats in the pill discussion public square were divided into two parts, one for alchemists and the other for guests. As one of the top 10 sects, Sun Kai-Xian was qualified to sit in the front row of guests. Ning Cheng, I'm here too. When Percy arrived, he greeted Ning Cheng from afar and sat down next to Sun Kai-Xian. Ning Cheng had just responded when he saw several people walking in from the other end of the pill discussion public square. Cheng Ho Tian walked in the second position, and in front of him was a beardless man wearing a black pill sage Daoist robe. Ning Cheng felt a shock in his heart when he saw this person. He felt a Dao charm aura from this person that integrated into the entire space. This aura seemed to be related to the Dao of alchemy, but it also seemed to have nothing to do with the Dao of alchemy. So powerful. Ning Cheng took in a deep breath. He guessed that this person should be the Pill Union's first association master, Si Chen Chiu Tian. Chapter 979. This group of people sat at the most conspicuous spot in the front of the square, close to the pill platform. Cheng Hotian's gaze swept towards Ning Cheng and nodded to Ning Cheng with a smile. At this moment, there were nearly 3,000 people in the square, but it still seemed very empty. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness swept out and found even more powerhouses. Not only Man Huishan, Shi Tianhe, Luo Jiesheng, Fei Feng, and other big shots from the major sects had also arrived. He even saw the black-robed star-stepping tower master. It seemed like this pill discussion assembly was not simple. Along with the sound of 3 drums, the prohibition of the elixir meeting square was activated, which meant that no one else would enter the square. After the drumming stopped, a man wearing a black alchemy sage Daoist robe walked onto the pill platform. He first performed a very grand alchemy master salute before saying slowly, "It's time for the alchemy discussion grand meeting that happens once every 200 years. I'm the Alchemy Association's guild master, Si Chen Chiu Tian, and I'm the host of this alchemy discussion grand meeting. I'm here to welcome fellow Taoists who have come to discuss alchemy, as well as fellow Taoists and sect masters who have come to listen. I heard that many geniuses in the Tao of alchemy have emerged in the fantasy orchard this time, which makes me very happy. I also hope that my Grand Essence Realm's Alchemy Discussion Grand Assembly will far surpass the past." Everyone knew that Si Chen Chiu Tian would discuss his understanding of the Pill Tao every time the Pill Discussion Conference began. At this moment, the entire Pill Gathering Plaza was silent. To the alchemists who came to participate in the Pill Discussion, this was a supreme enjoyment, and also a kind of opportunity. For a Tao core powerhouse like Si Chen and Chiu Tian, no one knew when he would go into seclusion or leave the Grand Essence realm. To alchemists of my generation, alchemy is the Tao. The Tao of alchemy was also the human Tao, the heavenly Tao, and the Tao of longevity. Alchemists, the jade cauldron soup decocted, the golden furnace fire blazed, the Xian bead formed into an image. One needed to have a clear understanding of yin and yang and a profound understanding of creation. Only then could one pursue the 2 qis in the ecliptic, the 3 natures in the Yuan Palace, the 5 elements, and the 4 symbols. This was the Tao of the small core and the Tao of the great core. They gathered yin and yang, gathered the 5 elements, channeled heaven and earth, and discussed the rules. How could the Tao of the great core be limited to the Tao of heaven and man? How could it be just the path to immortality? The Tao of alchemy is limitless. Flipping the starry sky and the universe is but a simple matter. Si Chen Chiu Tian's voice wasn't loud, but it sounded as if it was ringing in everyone's ears. If the results are always at the bottom, the number of places will decrease year by year. 5 places is the lowest. Generally, the best results come from the Grand Change Realm. Ning Cheng asked in confusion, Brother Jian, the Grand Change Realm doesn't need a place. Why do they want to participate in the competition? Jian Sanshan smiled and said, these places have a lot of uses, but I don't know about some of them. But I know that the Grand Change Realm would sell some of the places every time they obtain a large number of places. They sell these places to other realms and ask for a ridiculously high price. Even one of the top 10 sects would have to pay a heavy price to buy a place. Can we sneak into the Grand Change Realm? Ning Cheng asked again. Jian Sanshan shook his head, it's impossible. The Grand Change Realm's laws are perfect, and the realm is extremely stable. Moreover, the realm protecting restrictions are even more natural. Even Tao perfection experts can't enter the Grand Change Realm without the permission of the Grand Change Realm's controller. There are only 2 ways to enter the Grand Change Realm. One is through the Great Competition, and the second is through Ascension. Ning Cheng took in a breath of cold air. Controller? He quickly asked, Brother Jian, did you say that the Grand Change Realm has a controller? Controlling a realm? Does that mean our Grand Essence Realm also has a controller? Everything about us is under the control of that controller? Ning Cheng couldn't help but feel nervous. He knew that such a thing wasn't impossible. Just like his mysterious yellow bead, once it became a world, he would also be the controller of this world. Jian Sanshan smiled, the Grand Change Realm does have a controller, but not everyone can control the Grand Change Realm. If that's the case, who would want to go to the Grand Change Realm? As for our Grand Essence Realm, it used to have a controller. But after the realm shattered, the controller went missing. Now, the Sect Alliance and the major sects have come together to take charge of the Grand Essence Realm. Ning Cheng finally felt relieved. In case someone took control of the Grand Essence Realm, he would have to find a way to escape. Controlling the Grand Change Realm was equivalent to having a controller. Ning Cheng could still accept such a thing. Brother Ning, you have a chance to win a place in the Pill Exchange Conference to compete in the 5 Grand Realms. You must not miss it. After Jian Sanshan finished, he also reminded Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng was just about to ask when he heard Holy Emperor Qing Yi continue, in this Pill Exchange Conference, our Grand Essence Realm will select 5 alchemists to represent our Grand Essence Realm in the 5 Grand Realms Pill Competition. The alchemists who can represent the Grand Essence Realm in the 5 Grand Realms Pill Competition will receive a Heaven Essence Fruit in addition to the support of the major sects and clans. As the 3 words Heaven Essence Fruit spread, the entire venue immediately turned lively. This kind of priceless Tao fruit was taken out at once as a reward. This kind of extravagance was simply unimaginable. Although many Tao fruits appeared in the fantasy orchard, hundreds of them together might not be as valuable as one Heaven Essence Fruit. Even if Jing Han and the others entered the 4th floor, they would at most obtain a few Tao Transformation Tao fruits. The Heaven Essence Fruit was a genuine Tao Essence Tao fruit, and it was one of the most precious Tao Essence Tao fruits. It was a Tao fruit that allowed first step Tao confirming holy emperors to comprehend the second step Tao Essence Tao fruit. One could say that obtaining a Heaven Essence Fruit gave one a chance to become a second step Tao Essence Holy Emperor. Even Ning Cheng couldn't help but feel a little moved. He had obtained dozens of Tao fruit trees in the fantasy orchard, but he hadn't obtained a single Heaven Essence Fruit. Even the most valuable Tao fruit couldn't compare to the Heaven Essence Fruit. As far as we know, if you can get first place in the pill competition, you will get a top-grade wood-attributed God Spirit Vein. Apart from the first place, the second and third place rewards are equally precious. Hearing this, Ning Cheng immediately put aside the Heaven Essence Fruit. His mind was now filled with the wood-attributed top-grade God Spirit Vein. Because of its rarity, attributed God Spirit Veins were much more valuable than non-attributed God Spirit Veins. Among them, the most valuable was naturally the wood-attributed God Spirit Vein, not to mention a top-grade wood-attributed God Spirit vein. Ning Cheng had felt an itch in his heart when he saw the wood-attributed high-grade God Spirit vein in the fantasy orchard. Now, there was even a top-grade wood-attributed God Spirit vein as a reward. Ning Cheng had to participate in this competition. Whether he could get first place or not, he had to fight for this wood-attributed top-grade God Spirit vein. As long as he obtained this God Spirit vein, the various medicine gardens and Dao fruit trees in his mysterious yellow bead would glow with new vitality. Brother Ning, don't think that the Heaven Essence fruit is the most precious. In fact, as long as you get into the top 5, you can represent the Grand Essence realm in the pill competition of the 5 Grand Realms. Your harvest wouldn't be any weaker than the Heaven Essence fruit. Jian Sanshan saw Ning Cheng's eyes glowing with golden light and thought that Ning Cheng had become tempted by the Heaven Essence fruit. He didn't think that Ning Cheng wanted a wood-attributed top-grade spirit vein. Ning Cheng was a genius in the Tao of alchemy, but he didn't believe that Ning Cheng could take first place in the pill-gathering grand competition of the 5 Grand Realms. Don't look at how only 5 people from the Grand Essence realm participated in the pill competition of the 5 Grand Realms. The other realms had dozens of pill saints participating in the pill competition. Some even had primordial chaos pill saints. The Grand Essence realm couldn't compare to such a level. Do you mean the support from the major sects and clans mentioned by Holy Emperor Qing Yi? Ning Cheng asked. Jian Sanshan gave an "n" sound, that's right. Every time the Grand Essence realm qualifies to participate in the 5 Grand Realms great competition, whether you compete in alchemy, artifact crafting or Tao laws, many sects would show their goodwill. Their requirements are simple. That is, if you get a spot, they want to distribute a portion of it to their sections. Therefore, as long as you can get into the top 5 in this pill discussion Grand Assembly, cultivation resources would come rolling in. Then how many spots would the champion of the 5 Grand Realms Great Pill competition get? Jian Sanshan replied, I don't know about that. I only know that no matter what kind of competition it is, only the top 10 would get the rewards. Ning Cheng understood a bit about it. No wonder it was so difficult to get a place in the Grand Essence realm. 5 people competing for the top 10 in front of hundreds of powerful pill saints. Moreover, many of them were primordial chaos pill saints. It would truly be difficult to win. Chapter 980. Now, I announce the official start of the elixir discussion. After Sacred Emperor Qing Yi finished speaking, he walked down the elixir platform. Ning Cheng had never seen how people discussed alchemy, but he did not ask the 3 Sword Mountains about it. He wanted to see how the others discussed alchemy, and how he would also discuss it. As soon as Sacred Emperor Qing Yi walked down, a short man with a square face flew and landed on the pill stage. The man bowed with an alchemy master's greeting and said loudly, the Heaven Medicine Sect's Tao Birth Alchemy Saint, Bihan Yuan, greets seniors, sect masters and fellow alchemy Taoists. The alchemy conference is a day that all of us alchemists look forward to. Senior Qiu Tian's Grand Tao of Alchemy has given me a deep understanding of it. My alchemy intent is like a fishbone stuck in my throat. With the help of the Tao of Alchemy this time, Bihan Yuan will throw out a brick to attract jade. I hope that seniors can point out the mistakes in the Tao of Alchemy. Jian Sanshan's voice transmission came again. Brother Ning, although Bihan Yuan is a Tao Birth Alchemy Saint, his strength is not to be underestimated. He's the first pill saint of the first Heavenly Medicine Sect. He represented the Grand Essence realm in the last 5 realms pill competition. Ning Cheng nodded. He had seen this Bihan Yuan before. He had participated in the Fantasy Fruit Garden and had even entered the 3rd layer of the Fantasy Fruit Garden. Seeing that Bihan Yuan's pill discussion had begun, Ning Cheng sent a sound transmission to Jian Sanshan, Brother Jian, will you come up to discuss pills? Jian Sanshan said awkwardly, when there aren't many people, I intend to go up and discuss with them. This way, he would be able to receive some pointers, which would be very helpful to his pill Tao. However, when there are many alchemists discussing alchemy, I won't join in the fun. Generally, those who competed for such a slot were at least Tao sculpting pill saints. I, a pill god, do not have much competitiveness. How did the pill discussion meet select the 5 people? Ning Cheng continued to ask. Jian Sanshan carefully explained, as long as one has the qualifications to become a Tao sculpting pill deity, anyone can come onto the pill altar to discuss pills. The total score for the first round of the elixir discussion was 30 points. This score was given by the Elixir Association's guild leader according to the Elixir Tao of the Elixir Association. The top 20 elixir masters would enter the second round. The second round was to refute the opponent's pill Tao. Then, through one's own pill Tao methods, one would be able to refine a better pill than the opponent's, and one would win. In this round, only those with higher scores could refute those with lower scores. Refuting the other party's alchemy Tao could only refute one alchemist at most. If you win, your opponent's points in the first round will all go to you. In order to avoid losing, everyone chose weaker opponents when debating the Tao of alchemy, just in case. After the second round, it was time for the third round, which was a direct competition. That was to compete on whose pill was more valuable and whose pill was more difficult to refine. The materials for alchemy were all provided by themselves, and the refined pills also belonged to everyone. In fact, every time the alchemy discussion conference was held in the Illusion Garden, it was also for the sake of alchemy materials. The score for this round is 70 points, which are based on the difficulty and quality of the pill. If I don't enter the top 20 of the pill discussion, but my alchemy level is very high, then what should I do? If they really have the ability to concoct pills, they can still challenge them after the top 5 are decided. The challenge required at least 3 Tao transformation Tao fruits. As long as you could defeat the person with the highest score, even if you didn't participate in the pill discussion and the Tao of alchemy, you could still represent the Grand Essence realm to participate in the 5 realms pill competition. Because no matter who wins or loses, the Tao fruit will not be returned, so in reality, the possibility of this happening is almost non-existent. As Jian Sanshan spoke until here, he was afraid that Ning Qing didn't understand what he meant. So, he explained, in fact, even if you want to challenge them, you have to exchange pills with the other party. After listening to Jian Sanshan's explanation, Ning Qing nodded. Even he didn't want to take out 3 Tao transformation Tao fruits in exchange for a chance to challenge. 3 Tao transformation Tao fruits weren't just a little precious. Besides, the alchemy master with the best score would never be a nobody. Whether he won or lost, he would end up offending a big force. Therefore, if he wanted to represent the Grand Essence realm in the 5 realms pill competition, he might as well start from the first round. After Ning Qing basically understood the pill discussion selection, Bi Hanyuan completely immersed himself in his own alchemy Tao. Therefore, I believe that a pill is 1, and 1 is also 1. If a person knows 1, then everything is over. If a person knows 1, then there is nothing he doesn't know. If a person doesn't know 1, then there is nothing he doesn't know. Pill sage Qiu Tian once said that the Tao of alchemy is the heavenly Tao, the human Tao, and the Tao of longevity. The Tao produces qi from nothingness, and from that qi produces yin and yang. Yin and yang then combine into the 3 bodies, and the 3 bodies rebirth all things prosper. Ning Qing originally didn't care about these alchemy Tao discussions, but he heard Bi Hanyuan say, if a person knows 1, then there is nothing he doesn't know. If a person doesn't know 1, then there is nothing he doesn't know. The Tao produces qi from nothingness, and from that qi produces yin and yang. Yin and yang then combine into the 3 bodies, and the 3 bodies rebirth all things prosper. At that moment, his heart unexpectedly resonated with it. Didn't this have something in common with his grand Tao of returning to 1? He didn't care much about Bi Hanyuan's alchemy Tao, but he cared a lot about this Tao of returning to 1. The Tao produces qi from nothingness, and from that qi returns yin and yang. Yin and Yang combine into the three bodies, and the three bodies give birth to all things. Everything started from one, and everything returned to one. At this moment, he once again entered into an epiphany of the grand Tao of returning to one. Sitting in front of him, Si Chen Chiu Tian's gaze suddenly fell on Ning Cheng with a hint of surprise in his eyes. He had long since noticed Ning Cheng because, according to the information he received, Ning Cheng might be the alchemist who could open the 13th door of the fantasy garden. He naturally wouldn't ignore such a genius alchemist. To be honest, Ning Cheng falling into an epiphany during Bi Hanyuan's alchemy Tao discussion made him feel a little disappointed. Although Bi Hanyuan's alchemy Tao discussion drew support from his own alchemy Tao, it was full of mistakes and could not become a system at all. In his words, this was the Tao of small pills. Ning Cheng's epiphany during the Tao of small pills was obviously limited. Si Chen Chiu Tian sighed and was about to look away from Ning Cheng when he suddenly felt that something was wrong. He stared at Ning Cheng in shock because he could see that Ning Cheng was not comprehending the Tao of alchemy, but his own grand Tao. In the process of others discussing the Tao of alchemy, he did not comprehend the Tao of alchemy, but instead comprehended his own grand Tao. Was this the sorrow of the alchemy Tao discussion, or the heaven-defying nature of the person who comprehended it? This simply couldn't be measured with common sense. The one who felt Ning Cheng's epiphany the most was Jian Sanshan, who was sitting next to Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng fell into an epiphany, and his imposing aura continued to rise. This was obviously Ning Cheng's understanding of the spirit techniques and Tao insights gradually rising. In his heart, he was also horrified by Ning Cheng's terrifying epiphany ability. He could even gain an epiphany under such circumstances. Jian Sanshan wasn't Si Chen Chiu Tian, so he could only feel that Ning Cheng had fallen into an epiphany. However, he didn't know that Ning Cheng didn't have an epiphany about Bi Hanyuan's alchemy Tao, but about his own returning to one Tao. One could say that Ning Cheng's epiphany had nothing to do with Bi Hanyuan. If one had to say that it had something to do with Bi Hanyuan, then it was Bi Hanyuan's reminder. Bi Hanyuan's alchemy Tao discussion didn't last long. Si Chen Chiu Tian didn't know why, but he gave Bi Hanyuan 21 points, which was a high score. After scoring 21 points, Bi Hanyuan came down from the pill platform with a smile on his face. Jian Sanshan soon felt that something was wrong. Since Bi Hanyuan came down and the second alchemy master came up, Ning Cheng should have ended his epiphany. However, Ning Cheng not only didn't end his epiphany, but his imposing aura continued to rise. One alchemy master after another came up to discuss alchemy Tao. Even Tao transformation pill saints like Jing Han, Do Jiangshi, Leshem, and others had come up to discuss alchemy Tao, but Ning Cheng still hadn't woken up. Seeing that the first round of alchemy Tao discussion was about to end, Jian Sanshan felt a little anxious. It didn't matter if he went up or not. Ning Cheng was a Tao transformation pill saint and definitely had a chance to enter the top 5. If he missed the alchemy Tao discussion, it would be almost impossible for Ning Cheng to enter the top 5. As fewer and fewer pill saints came up to discuss alchemy Tao, Jian Sanshan knew that it was too late. As Ning Cheng fell into an epiphany, he couldn't wake Ning Cheng up. Some cultivators never experienced an epiphany in their lives. Once you disturbed the other party's epiphany, you would become a life and death enemy. No matter how important it was to participate in the alchemy Tao discussion, it wasn't as important as this long-term epiphany. Not to mention Jian Sanshan, even Cheng Ho Tian, Sen Rushuan, and Percy, who were familiar with Ning Cheng, looked at Ning Cheng in confusion. They also felt strange as to why Ning Cheng didn't come up to discuss alchemy Tao. Some alchemy masters, who had speculated that Ning Cheng had entered the 13th floor of the illusion garden, started to pay attention to Ning Cheng. After confirming that Ning Cheng didn't come up to discuss alchemy Tao, they started to doubt whether Ning Cheng had entered the 13th floor of the illusion garden. After the first round ended and the second round began, Ning Cheng still fell into an epiphany. In the end, Jian Sanshan could only sigh and no longer dwell on this matter. He concentrated on feeling the conflicting alchemy Dao and pill charm of the many alchemy Dao powerhouses on the pill platform. This time, Jing Han was the first to come up. As soon as he came up, he directly said, "The alchemy Dao has nothing to do with one. Alchemy Dao cultivators gather essence qi and spiritual consciousness, fuse with the many spiritual objects of heaven and earth, and gather the essence. How can it become one? One can be a Dao fruit, a spiritual object, but not a pill. I want to refute the heaven medicine sex Dao nourishment pill saint, Bi Hanyuan." Everyone suddenly understood that Bi Hanyuan had scored too high in the first round. Even if Jing Han didn't refute him, someone else would. Who didn't want 21 points? Bi Hanyuan felt a little helpless. The joy of scoring a high score in the first round disappeared without a trace. In terms of alchemy Dao and alchemy, he was far from being Jing Han's opponent. He would definitely lose this round. Knowing that he would lose, he could only go up to the pill platform. When Ning Qing woke up, he saw Sacred Emperor Qin Yi on the pill platform. Sacred Emperor Qin Yi said with a smile, "After 3 rounds of alchemy discussion, the final 5 people are, Immortal Corpse Sex Dao Transformation Pill Saint Do Jiangshi, High Divine Pill Sex Dao Transformation Pill Saint Jing Han, City Lord Mansions Dao Transformation Pill Saint Lu Zixin, Flaming Feather Spirit Mountains Dao Transformation Pill Saint Yan Kuifu, Missing Moon Valleys Dao Birth Pill Saint Mei Xiuan." Was this the end of the pill competition? Ning Qing looked at Holy Emperor Qin Yi, who was on the pill stage, in surprise. The benefits of this epiphany were unimaginable. Ning Qing believed that with this epiphany, he would quickly advance to the middle stage Dao modeling. This kind of Dao foundation couldn't be described in words. Only he himself understood it. "Brother Ning, you actually had an epiphany for 10 days and 10 nights. Jian Sanchen's regretful voice came over. Apparently, he felt that Ning Cheng's epiphany had taken too long. Ning Cheng asked doubtfully, "Brother Jian, that's not right. Isn't there another Dao transformation pill saint called Resham?" Pill Sage Resham lost to Missing Moon Valley's Dao Birth Pill Saint Mei Xiuan during the pill exchange, Jian Sanshan replied. Chapter 981. A Dao Transformation Alchemy Saint had lost to a Dao Birth Alchemy Saint. Ning Qing immediately thought of Do Jiangshi. He was obviously a Dao Transformation Alchemy Saint, but he did not go for the assessment. Instead, he used the qualifications of a Dao Modeling Alchemy Saint to participate in the Fantasy Garden. Thinking of this, Ning Qing suddenly felt that he was similar to him. He was also a Dao Transformation Pill Saint, but he used a Dao Sculpting Pill Deity to participate in the Fantasy Garden. What was slightly better than him was that he had taken the Dao Transformation Alchemy Saint qualification card before participating in the Illusion Garden. In the Illusion Garden, that divine soul first failed to possess him, and in the end, it possessed Do Jiangshi. Was this retribution? If no one comes up to challenge them, then the 5 of them will represent my Grand Essence realm in the 5 Realms Pill competition. At the same time, I would also like to invite the sects and clans willing to support the 5 alchemists. Knowing that no one would come up to challenge them, Holy Emperor Qin Yi still mentioned it. Only then did Ning Qing wake up. If he didn't issue a challenge, he wouldn't have the opportunity to represent the Grand Essence realm in the 5 Realms Pill competition. Without waiting for Holy Emperor Qin Yi to continue, Ning Qing quickly stood up. "Wait, I want to issue a challenge." Sacred Emperor Qin Yi's words came to an abrupt end. Not only Sacred Emperor Qin Yi, but everyone on the public square also looked at Ning Qing. What a show-off guy. The veiled woman sitting next to Tsin Rushuan shook her head speechlessly. Not only her, but even Shuri Shuang and Ning Yongxian who knew Ning Qing shook their heads in silence. Back at the Grand Essence Ruins Trade Fair, they already knew that Ning Qing loved to show off. But from the looks of it, even after changing places, he still couldn't change this habit. Who is this person? You shouldn't be asking who he is, but who does he think he is? How dare he challenge me in such an occasion? You are courting death. Some of the cultivators who did not know Ning Qing immediately asked about it, which soon turned into speechless curses. In the Grand Essence realm, alchemists always had a relatively high status, not to mention the 5 top-grade alchemists representing the Grand Essence realm in the 5 realms pill competition. Ning Qing was just an unknown pill master, yet he dared to issue a challenge to these 5 people. It would be a strange thing if he was not scolded. Challenge the 5 great pill saints. Was this something that anyone could say? Could anyone take out 3 Dao transformation Dao fruits? In the face of so many seniors and powerhouses, as well as the most powerful Dao Essence pill sage in the Grand Essence realm, Situ Qiutian, talking nonsense in such a place would only lead to death. A puny Dao molding divine emperor couldn't even be slapped to death here. I can only say that you are ignorant and ill-informed. You don't even know the famous pill master Ning. Do you know who opened the 13th door of the fantasy garden? It was him. Do you know who is on good terms with President Qing? It's also him. No way, he is Ning Qing. The guy who offended the Dragon Emperor, Tong Mingzi, and City Lord Lu. Who else could it be? No wonder, someone who dared to kill Man Huishan's son and didn't even give Lu Jiesheng any face, so it was only normal for him to issue a challenge in the pill discussion assembly. It would be abnormal if such a fearless person were to fight for the top 5 using normal means. You mean you want to challenge him? Holy Emperor Qingyi looked at Ning Qing in surprise. She immediately recalled that Ning Qing had obtained a lot of Dao fruits in the fantasy garden. She guessed that Ning Qing must have some Dao transformation Dao fruits on him. However, Dao transformation Dao fruits were so precious that they couldn't be wasted so casually. Even if Ning Qing entered the 13th door of the fantasy garden, he wouldn't have obtained many Dao transformation Dao fruits, right? In fact, Holy Emperor Qingyi didn't guess wrong. Ning Qing had obtained a lot of Dao transformation Dao fruits in the fantasy garden, but he didn't have more than 10 Dao transformation Dao fruits in total. That's right, I really want to challenge. Ning Qing quickly repeated his words. Holy Emperor Qingyi could only say, do you know that you need to take out 3 Dao transformation Dao fruits to challenge him? Moreover, whether you win or lose, these 3 Dao transformation Dao fruits won't be returned. 2 of these 3 Dao fruits are for the person you want to challenge. She knew that Ning Qing and Qing Ho Tian had a good relationship, so she took the initiative to remind Ning Qing. Ning Qing smiled, walked up the pill stage, took out 3 jade boxes, and handed them to Holy Emperor Qingyi. I happen to have 3 great nullification divine fruits on me. It's just the right time to take them out. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They didn't expect Ning Qing to really take out 3 Dao transformation Dao fruits. The great nullification divine fruit was indeed a Dao transformation Dao fruit. It could evolve a Dao transformation divine emperor's nomological sacred art. If a Dao transformation divine emperor wanted to reach the second step of the Dao essence realm, it was very important to understand the nomological sacred art. The great nullification divine fruit was obviously a Dao transformation Dao fruit that could help one reach the Dao essence realm. Although it wasn't as precious as the purple heaven Dao fruit, it was much more precious than ordinary Dao nourishment Dao fruits. Holy Emperor Qingyi didn't have such a big deal. She carefully opened the jade box that Ning Qing handed to her. After confirming it, she nodded and said cautiously, that's right, there are 3 great nullification divine fruits in this jade box. After saying that, she put away the jade box and continued, Pill Master Ning, you know that if you want to challenge someone, you can only challenge the person with the highest score. If the pill master with the highest score doesn't accept your challenge, then you can challenge the others. Of course, no matter who you challenge, you have to accept the other 4. Ning Qing nodded. Naturally, no problem. Holy Emperor Qingyi continued, in that case, prepare for the challenge. If the pill master with the highest score refuses the challenge, he must state the reason why he doesn't accept your challenge. As for the method of the battle, it must be proposed by the pill master you challenge. Everyone immediately looked at Dou Jiangshi, thinking to themselves that this Ning Cheng truly was ignorant and fearless. If Ning Cheng had said that he wanted to compete with Dou Jiangshi at the beginning of the pill discussion conference, although others might have felt that it wasn't appropriate, they wouldn't have looked at him like this. Everyone here had seen Dou Jiangshi's pill Dao level. Even the most promising Dao transformation pill sage in the Grand Essence realm, Jing Han, wasn't his opponent, let alone Ning Cheng. Let's not talk about whether Ning Cheng had really opened the 13th door of the Illusion Fruit Garden. Even if Ning Cheng had opened the 13th door, he definitely hadn't reached the 4th level of the Illusion Fruit Garden. As long as he hadn't reached the 4th level of the Illusion Fruit Garden, it meant that Ning Cheng's pill Dao level was far inferior to Dou Jiangshi's. Besides, who could be sure that one had a high pill Dao level after opening the 13th door of the Illusion Fruit Garden? Maybe there were other factors. Dou Jiangshi stood up and walked towards the pill stage. Since Ning Cheng wanted to challenge him, even if he didn't want to accept the challenge, he had to go to the pill stage first. Everyone on the pill discussion square thought that Dou Jiangshi would fly into a rage out of shame. After all, being challenged by a Dao sculpting pill deity like Ning Cheng was a very shameful thing. To everyone's surprise, Dou Jiangshi cupped his fists towards the public square before looking at Ning Cheng and saying, "I refuse your challenge. The reason for refusing is because I'm not your opponent." After saying that, Dou Jiangshi didn't care about other people's opinions. He slowly walked down the pill stage and once again sat down in the row where the 5 people won. Dou Jiangshi didn't show any expression on his face, let alone embarrassment or embarrassment. The public square suddenly turned silent. But after Dou Jiangshi sat down, this silence quickly turned into a noisy discussion. What kind of rhythm was this? Dou Jiangshi, the immortal corpse sect's super dark horse, actually refused the challenge of a Dao sculpting pill deity? If the reason for refusing was contempt or disdain for competing with Ning Cheng, it would have been more like it. But Dou Jiangshi's reason for refusing was that he wasn't Ning Cheng's opponent. Ning Cheng looked at Dou Jiangshi and smiled but didn't speak. At this moment, he felt even more sure that Dou Jiangshi was the unlucky fellow who got possessed by that fellow. Otherwise, he would never have refused his challenge. If Dou Jiangshi was that spirit soul, then he naturally knew about his alchemy methods and knew that he wasn't Ning Cheng's opponent. Moreover, Dou Jiangshi didn't hesitate to admit defeat to represent the Grand Essence realm in the 5 Grand Realms pill competition. There must be a reason for it. After Dou Jiangshi admitted defeat, many people on the public square started to look at Ning Cheng. Although some people thought that Dou Jiangshi didn't want to take risks and deliberately admitted defeat. After all, Dou Jiangshi had already obtained the qualifications to represent the Grand Essence realm in the 5 Grand Realms pill competition. As such, there was no need for him to discuss alchemy with Ning Cheng. However, most people felt that Dou Jiangshi might not be Ning Cheng's opponent, which meant that Ning Cheng was an extremely powerful alchemy master. Since Dou Jiangshi didn't want to compete with Ning Cheng could only find one of the remaining 4. Ning Cheng's gaze swept over the remaining 4 people. Except for the missing Moon Valley's Dao-raising pill sage Mei Xiuan, who looked at Ning Cheng with a puzzled look, the other 3 looked indifferent. Jing Han didn't know how strong Ning Cheng's Dao of alchemy was, but he had a lot of enmity with Ning Cheng. If it weren't for preparing for the pill competition, he would have already found a way to kill Ning Cheng. If Ning Cheng challenged him, he would definitely slap Ning Cheng's face. At this moment, he couldn't wait for Ning Cheng to challenge him. Ning Cheng's gaze didn't linger on his face. If not for the 5 elements heavenly fruit, Ning Cheng would have challenged Jing Han. The 5 elements heavenly fruit he brought back was problematic. Just as Jing Han didn't want to let him go, Ning Cheng also decided not to let this fellow go. This fellow was the trump card of the Grand Essence Pill sect and always had powerhouses around him. It wouldn't be easy to kill him here. He could only let this fellow represent the Grand Essence realm in the pill competition and then find a chance to kill him before leaving the Grand Essence realm. Therefore, he couldn't let Jing Han go. Ning Cheng looked at Yan Kuaifu again. He didn't expect that the Flaming Feather Spirit Mountain would have a Dao Transformation Pill Sage. This fellow didn't seem to have gone to the Fantasy Orchard, and Ning Cheng didn't know why. Flaming Feather Spirit Mountains. Ning Cheng knew Peng Shan and Peng Ruime. Therefore, for the sake of these two fellows, he decided to let this Yan Kuaifu go. As for the missing Moon Valley's Mei Shiwan, she would be a good opponent. Moreover, she was just a Dao-raising pill sage. However, Ning Cheng's gaze quickly moved away. Finding a woman to fight with, especially the weakest one here, would make him lose some of his spirit. If there was no other choice, then it would be her. Now that he had a choice, he could only choose this City Master's Mansion's Lushizhan. The Lu clan controlled the Heaven Essence Sacred City's City Master's Mansion and even controlled the Fantasy Orchard. Their background truly wasn't ordinary. They even had a Dao Transformation Pill Sage. Since they used Dao fruits to brew wine, it wouldn't be strange to cultivate a Dao Transformation Pill Sage. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.